Ah, bueno. Yo estoy seguro que...
Hello, I'm here.
I'm on mute. Oh my goodness, I'm talking to you, Ms. Lamb, and I'm on mute, and I'm like,
how are you?
good, good. I'm talking, I'm like, oh, maybe you're on mute, and then I see my little buttons on mute.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, hi, Ms. Lamb, I see you, and I see you moving and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, actually doing real good.
Oh, that's good. Excellent.
Okay. So,
Getting ready for the changes. Unfortunately.
Yes. Okay. So I have some new updated information for you. Okay. Okay. So what's going to happen is, okay, come January 1st, even though the law goes into effect, okay, you still enroll students under the current programs for the hours until you get approval from all three, until your approval comes in from the Board of Barbering.
So it's like an extension.
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
nice,
Because
nice.
you cannot enroll them under 1,000 until you have approval from all three, from the Board of Barbering, private post-secondary, and NACCAS. So until you get all the approval from three, you're going to continue enrolling them under the 1,600-hour program, but you need to inform that when they come to enroll, because many people are misinformed. They think because something, correct. They think because something goes into law that right away the change is going to happen.
Yeah.
The change cannot happen until all the schools get approval for all three, from all three agencies.
So let's say January 1st comes around, and you know, we had a meeting with the PBFC and Fred Jones, Seth, and all of them were there with Christy Underwood. And I
Right.
believe it was the president of BPPE. And you know, they're trying to make heads and tails and get everything done by January 1st, but it seems impossible. So this is good
Correct.
news, you know, to let, you know, schools know, like, hey, you know, you might not get approval by January 1st, but you can continue running your business. You don't have to shut down, you know, and not be able to, you know, enroll new students. So that means that they'll continue to enroll at the current program.
Yes.
Not
Okay,
at
so,
the, okay.
yeah, because you have accredited schools and you know that when you're gonna submit for approval for program change of the hours, it's still considered a change with NACCAS.
Yes.
So it could take up to 6 months before they give you approval for the 1,000-hour course. So in the
That's
meantime,
what
the
I
students,
seen in, I seen one of my emails, Chris Tellis got approval that he sent an email, you know, to everybody, and it said, thank you for the approval, you know, for the new course or whatever, but it's useless anymore because, you know, it's already 6 months down the road and everything changed already here in California. So that was from NACCAS.
yeah.
So
So you know that because we can't get approval until after January 1st, because the
yes.
law doesn't take effect till January 1st. So nobody can submit approvals until then, really, when you stop and think about it. So what happens is you continue enrolling your students under a 1,600-hour program, but you're gonna inform them that changes with government approvals do not come that quick. Even though it's a law, it doesn't mean that right away we go into the law, because you still have to go through approvals with government agencies. Okay. Yeah. And so until then, you just tell them, you know, we're going to still enroll you for 1,600, but once we get the approvals, then if you want to switch to 1,000, then you can do your contract addendum change.
Okay.
Or they can stay as is. If they feel, no, I'll just stay as is and just do it all,
right,
then that's even better.
Well, that, you know, here at our school, we've been going back and forth, you know, whether we're going to go 1,000, whether we're going to do 1,500, which is the max that NACCAS will allow us.
Right.
And we came to a conclusion that for the time being, you know, 1,500 hours for the cosmetology course, that's what we're going to be doing. You know, for other schools and other courses, everybody has to make their decision to see what's best for them and their staff and their students. But, you know, in talking with my staff and polling some of my students, you know, I asked them, I said, well, how did you feel at 1,000 hours? Did you feel ready? And they're like, no, we don't feel ready.
Well,
you know, but everybody has to make their own decision as to how they're going to handle it and, you know, what's best for their students.
Right, because when I did the breakdown numbers for 1,000 hours, I mean, even I saw that, for example, even I saw that in the hair chemicals and in the hairstyling section, it's not enough. Okay,
right, yeah,
it's not enough. And the whole thing too, I found out with Pennsylvania, according to Senator Ross and Sarah Mason, they are totally wrong regarding the hours in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania went from 1,500 for barbering, and they went to 1,200 hours actually.
Oh, I see.
So their hours in Pennsylvania is 1,205 hours in the state of Pennsylvania. That is according to their board regulation. Okay.
Yeah, they had a lot of misinformation. You know, I can attest to that. You know, I did my own research, and I was researching every state, you know, hours, you know, as far as cosmetology and barbering. And some of the states that he was mentioning, it was like they have another special program, which is less hours than their master cosmetology or master barbering course.
Correct.
You know, so, but you know, it is what it is. You know, we got to just move forward from here. Unfortunately, it feels bad. You know, it feels bad not only for ourselves, you know, for our future students that, you know, we're going to be enrolling. that some schools, you know, will have a smaller course, some will have a bigger course. You know, we just have to do what's best, you know, for our students. And, you know, for the ones that are in the 1,000-hour course, you know, for cosmetology, I think it'll be a rush course, but it is what it is, you know?
Yeah. So the thing is that when they're in the 1,000-hour course, because the rumor was going around, and I don't know who's listening. There's only 3 of us. Actually, it would be nice if it was like 500 listening. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't start till 4.
The rumor has been going around that under the new 1,000 hours that they don't have to do practical and facials and nails. Only teach it. That is false information. They still have to do the technical and practical training. They have to do both. There's no getting around they only have to do the lecture and facials. No, they are required to do practical as well, and the nails as well. There's nothing that says it's only theory. It says technical and practical during the 1,000-hour training.
Well, you know where the confusion comes from. Since there's no more practical, then I guess they only have to worry about the theory side. And see, that's where there's going to be a lot more confusion out there, you know, as we start, you know, the new year, you know.
Correct. And not only that, the possibility is you're going to have a lot of people going into this profession very unskilled and very limited.
Yeah.
Because some schools, they're just going to bypass it, you know, and it's a sad thing, you know.
Well, you know,
I'm not one to tell schools how to run their business, but I'm looking at it this way. If you want to be a successful school, you need to run it by the book. That's how you have to run it by the book. Okay, so regarding that thing that you sent me, that text last week regarding the variance on the hours, okay, because currently with NACCAS, if you have like 1,000-hour program, you can only exceed 50%.
Yes.
But there's a possibility that Nevada is also looking to change their hours as well, seeing what's happening here in California. They're kind of looking into that situation as well. So there will be the possibility that Nevada may follow suit along with that.
I think that unfortunately, being that California is such a major player in this industry, that the rest of the states will unfortunately follow suit.
Anything California does, all the states usually will follow suit. Okay. So the thing is that we now have to kind of prepare and adjust for the change. Okay.
Yes.
But in the meantime, like I said, because it can take with NACCAS up to 6 months. And, you know, I've been an evaluator for NACCAS since 2012. So one of the things I have done is I have worked with a PSS reviewer as a PSS reviewer, which means when there's changes in hours in states, and then they have to get approved for the change of hours. Okay, usually, you know, the approval doesn't come right away because people submit it and it may take several months before it gets to me. You understand?
Oh,
so
wow.
Usually once I do that PSS review for an approval change for schools that have had change of hours, which I have done quite a number of them lately, then usually, like myself, I try to get it done within a week and submit it back. But then it's up to NACCAS as to what time they're going to get that approval to the school when they send that better notification.
So, Ms., right now, as an evaluator for NACCAS, are you doing everything via Zoom, or how is that working out?
Yeah, we're still doing our school visits on Zoom till probably the end of this year. And then probably going into next year, then we'll be going back to on-site.
On-site?
But I do both for NACCAS. I work as a PSS reviewer for those that are adding program or when there's going to be changes of status and hours and then besides, you know, flying out to different states. But right now we've been doing everything virtually, except for PSS reviews. When you're changing hours in a program or you're adding a program, those still are done the regular way because we don't go out for those. Those we work from home base, you know, and do the paperwork, necessary paperwork for that, but it's still a lot of paperwork.
Okay.
And that involves a lot. So I just want the schools to fully well know what's gonna be ahead in the next couple of months. So come January, they have to continue rolling them at 1,600 until, like I said, they're approved by BPPE, BBC, and if they're an accredited school by NACCAS. If they're not an accredited school, and let's say they are only approved by BPPE and they're approved by the BBC, they still have to wait till they get approval by both agencies before they can start 1,000-hour enrollment. That's why it's best that they continue enrolling them on a 1,600-hour course. Once they get approval, if the student wants to make a contract change and addendum for 1,000 hours, then at that point, the school does have to honor that request from the student, which means that they would have to withdraw them from the 1,600-hour and move them over into 1,000-hour.
Or whatever other hours you decide to do for your school.
Correct. And then
Yeah,
there's a
okay.
possibility that they may just want to keep the hours as is and continue as they want. But
Yes, yeah.
but that doesn't mean we're all going to be shut down come January 1st because we're not getting approval. We will continue as is. We will continue enrolling as we have been enrolling until those approvals are by those agencies.
Well,
I've been
thank you for sharing that. You know,
I've been doing
right
my
now,
homework.
no, that's great. You know, we need all that information. You know, right now, when this turns around 4:10, you know, we're gonna have Leticia from RGM. I'm not too sure who your school uses for their financial aid third-party servicer, but she's gonna come in and talk a little bit about financial aid and run down some numbers. She has a PowerPoint presentation, but you know, after that, it's pretty much an open Zoom meeting so that, you know, you can share what you just shared with me. I wish more people would have been here so they could have heard, you know, the
Well, you got about 6 of them so far, so I'm pretty sure they'll get the word around, you know.
right, yeah, but they just barely logged in. I see Miss Ortega there and Len and
Right.
Miss Tina. I'm not too sure who she is, and Gail Miner is trying to log in, but
Yeah,
hopefully we'll have a good meeting, you know.
right.
And we'll be able to share more good information like what you just shared. That's always great to hear.
So the thing is with the schools, they should not panic really, because until your programs are approved by the agencies, you have to continue rolling them at 1,600. So come January 1st, it's still going to continue as is. Okay. The public really gets misinformed because you have a lot of young people thinking that, oh, come January 1st, I'm going to be able to enroll at 1,000. No.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand there's a lot of government red tape. Even though the law gets approved, it takes time for everything to kind of fall into place. So in the meantime, we're going to continue enrolling them under a 1,600-hour program until your program is approved by the agency.
Yes. And one of the things that I was
hello, how are you?
I just muted her. I think she went offline, but she forgot to mute herself.
Okay.
I was asking the board what will happen. You know, we're gonna do 1,500 hours, you know.
Correct.
What happens to a student that reaches in our new program sometime next year, reaches 1,000 hours, says, I want to withdraw, give me my hours, give me my proof of training. According to, you know, the BPPE, we have to give them that proof of training. So I asked the board to see how they're going to handle that. Will that student be able to just go online with the proof of training and go test since they didn't finish the course? Or is there going to be somewhere on that proof of training say, hey, this student enrolled for 1,500 hours, only finished 1,000 hours, so they haven't finished the course. But, you know, that's going to be something that they're going to have to discuss and figure out. But that was one of my concerns that I had, you know, for the board. And they took it under consideration. They're talking about it right now because it's something that they didn't think about.
Yeah. So if let's say you have students that are under 1,000 hours, okay, this is really an easy situation here. So let me explain this. If they're under 1,000 hours, let's say the way that they give the 300 hours, you just have to, like, for example, like the hairstyling, right? The hairstyling is 200 hours, okay? And the hair chemicals is 200 hours. Skincare for cosmetology is 150, and then 100 for nails, and then 100 for health and safety, and 100 in sanitation and disinfection. They just have to calculate to make sure that they have met, okay? That they have met, like say 100 hours in health and safety, 100 in sanitation and disinfection, 200 in hairstyling, and 200 in hair chemicals, 150 in facials, and 100 in nails. You just have to make sure that they have met those required hours in those areas.
Okay.
If they
No, but-
don't meet those required hours in those areas, they are to continue until they meet those required hours.
Yeah, but my question is, you know, let's say we're running now a 1,500-hour course, and the student decides to withdraw at 1,000 hours. They didn't finish their course, but they can go and test because they have 1,000 hours.
No, not until you have approval. They have to, that's why I said they have to continue coming to school until they get approved, until you get approval by your
No,
agency.
no, I'm doing a future scenario. Everything's good
If they
down the road.
withdraw, okay,
Yeah.
if they withdraw, okay, you have to understand that if they withdraw at 1,000 hours, it's going to affect your graduation rates, your completion rates, okay? So the best thing to do is if they reach 1,000 hours, put them on leave instead of withdraw. You're better off putting them on leave instead of a withdrawal.
Okay.
And then once you get the approvals, and when they come back, if they
Okay.
have 1,000, as long as they have met the hours, like I said, 100 in health and safety, 100 in sanitation, disinfection, 200 hours in technical and practical procedures and chemical hair services, 200 hours of technical and practical training in hair dressing services, 150 in facials, and 50 hours in hair removal and lash brow beautification, 100 in nail manicure and pedicure and artificial services. If they come back from leave, let's say you have a student that comes back from leave, instead of putting them under a withdrawal, you have to calculate, the schools have to calculate. You have to calculate that they have met those requirements in all those areas, that they have met the established hours. If they have not met the established hours in those areas, then they have to do additional hours till they meet the new established hours. You understand what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah, no, but okay, maybe let me re-explain my question. So let's just say January 1st comes around. I got all my approvals, NACCAS, Department of Education, the whole
Okay.
works.
Uh-huh.
I enroll a student for my 1,500-hour course because that's what we're gonna keep it at, 1,500 hours. The student in October reaches 1,000 hours and says, I want to withdraw because I have 1,000 hours and I changed my mind. I want to go to state board. Give me my transcripts, give me my proof of training.
You can't, not right now, you can't do it.
So I'm talking about a future student enrolling in the new contract. I have everything approved, so the board will have to accept that proof of training at 1,000 hours, even though they didn't complete the course.
Okay, if they're at 1,000 hours, don't have the student withdraw, put them on leave. When they come back, then you can classify them as a graduate when they come back. When they come back from leave, the day that they return, you have them clock in. But the reason why you need to have them clock in is because you're gonna need that day, and all these schools have to understand, you're gonna need that day to calculate the new the new format of the hours, the way they.
But I'm not
established
gonna offer the 1,000-hour course here. And my
Okay,
my
if they-
1,500, my 1,500-hour course is going to have more than the minimum required by the state. So
Okay, then
my scenario is, that student reaches 1,000 hours, they enrolled in the 1,500-hour program. They knew that, you know, because we explained to them that it's only 1,000 hours, and they reach 1,000 hours, and they say, I want to withdraw, and I want to go and take my test. Give me my proof of training. You know, even
You
no.
can't. No, you can't unless you're approved for 1,000 hours. You can't.
So
You have to let them know when they enroll. You have to let them know that your school's not approved for 1,000 hours.
okay, so okay, then that'll cover us. But how will the state know when they have their proof of training and it says they finish 1,000 hours? How is the state board going to know that?
Okay, first of all, the school still has to do the proof of training because they're still going under license. So the school still has to do the proof of training. As far as the application, the fees do not change because their fees were already established by the state. So the fee, whatever
Okay.
the fees are, they're going to continue as is. There is no change to the fee schedule with the board.
Okay. Okay, well, that's good information. I'm gonna put myself on mute. I'm glad to see everybody that's joining. Letty, I see you there. Ms. Demi from Chris Tellis' school, I see you there. Ms. Ortega, I see you bouncing in and out. But that's Ms. Rosalinda Lamb. She's shared a lot of good information on the Remind School app. I don't know if some of you guys are still there on the Remind School app, or you guys kind of said, forget about that.
Okay, so let them talk.
Be
I'm
an
gonna let
open
them
Zoom.
talk now, and I'm gonna go on mute so everybody can talk, okay?
No,
I
but
talked
we
enough.
need your information. We need your
Okay.
information. Leticia, she's gonna give a little presentation on PowerPoint regarding financial aid. If you guys have financial aid at your school, she's from RGM. And maybe we'll wait about maybe 5-10 minutes to just let everybody kind of log in. And then we'll go from there. But you know, feel free to chat right now and say hi to each other. And you know, we've been chatting with Ms. Rosalinda Lamb. She has some good information about what's happening on January 1st, just in case we don't get approved. And I think she'll be able to share that with us in a little bit.
Okay, so for those of you that are logging in, okay, you're gonna continue enrolling your students for the current hours that they're under until you get approval from all agencies. In the meantime, it's gonna continue as is. Once you get your approval from the agencies, then if your students want to change to a 1,000-hour program, you will do a contract addendum change, which means you will have to technically withdraw them from a 1,600-hour to a 1,000-hour contract once you get all your approvals approved by the agencies. If you're a school that's accredited with NACCAS, you will require 3 approvals from BBC and BPPE and NACCAS. If you are not a NACCAS school or you're not accredited, you're still going to be required to get approved by both agencies. So until you get approvals, you're going to continue enrolling your students in the programs as is. Once you have gotten your approvals, then at that point, if your students want to make a change, you will need to do a contract addendum by withdrawing them from the current program and putting them under a new program for the 1,000 hours. But because of January 1st, those changes, those approvals are not going to come right away. So they are going to continue as is until all your paperwork is submitted and approved by all the agencies.
Real quick, hi Rosalinda, it's Seth. How are you?
Hey Seth, how you doing?
Good, good. Okay, so I just got something from Christy as well, and it sort of reiterates what you're saying, but I don't think it's a contract addendum so much as it's a withdrawal and a re-enrollment. But it's essentially, basically, the way I posed it to her was, if I have a student, let's say, that's got 1,200 hours come January 1st, and can I drop them, re-enroll them in my new one, and then give them a proof of training, and is provided they've met all of the requirements of the new law? And she said, yes, you can. So basically, we're going to be given the option to basically drop people, re-enroll them, but I don't think it's like an addendum to where, you know, that we're updating the existing contract. Because when I hear addendum, that's what I think. Maybe it's just semantics, but when I hear addendum, I think, oh, it's something to the existing contract. But if I'm not mistaken, we're actually dropping them from the current contract and giving them a new contract.
Correct.
The interesting thing is that basically it's a contract at 0 hours. And so you won't be doing any financial aid. You might have refunds due to your under that old contract. The more interesting thing happens when you've got students with 500 hours, let's say, right? And then
Correct.
you've got issues of dropping and re-enrolling and, refunding monies, and maybe you have a new rate at the new contract, all those types of things, right? But I just wanted to clarify on that to make sure that we were on the same page. And I
Yeah.
think-
Yes, that is kind of true what you're saying on that. So what the schools will have to do, because when you're going into 1,000 hours, the schools will have to make a decision whether they want to increase their tuition or keep their tuition as is. That's going to be up to every school, And I can already foresee schools increasing their tuition for 1,000 hours. But as far as like with everything that has happened, it's been so crazy, Chris, because I have been a PSS reviewer for NACCAS since 2013, and the last several years I've had schools that have had hours changed because the state changed their hours. And usually when I get these schools, they're submitted several months in advance. And then by the time I get them, it's already been 3 months since they submit their paperwork. And then usually I take about a week to review and send back. And then it's up to NACCAS to ask when they approve them. So, with dealing with BPPE and the agencies and all these schools are dealing with, and with some of the other states where they have had changes in the hours, everybody's going to be on backlog. That's why I said that for the time being, everybody continues their hours as is until they get their approval. But if you get a student, like you said, that completed their 1,000 or their 1,200, as long as they have met the new guidelines for the hours between their technical and their practical, then yes, at that time, like you said, given the new contract 0 hours and given their paperwork and let them apply for the board.
Yeah. And from what, obviously from what NACCAS has said, basically that if you want to take your existing program and basically just reduce the hours down to 1,000 or 11 or 12 or whatever it's going to be, it's a non-substantive change. So it's actually going to be very simple in terms of their eyes. The question becomes, if you want to keep your existing program and then make a new 1,000 hour program or whatever it is, that's where you're going to run into the program self-study, and it's a new program and it's going to
Correct.
take months. But if you
Correct.
choose, but if you choose to just say, look, I'm done teaching the old, other than the teach out, which all students will be allowed to be teached out in the existing program, even though technically that approval will have ceased at that point. All students will still be allowed to be taught out as long as they were enrolled before January 1st. So you technically could have two programs going at the same time. One's a teach out situation and the other one's just a reduction in hours, which is a non-substantive change. So in that way, it's not going to be difficult to do. The question is going to be if you try to do two programs and if you're going to do two real programs, one of them is going to have to be a full program edition, which is ridiculous. And NACCAS shouldn't be doing this because it's the same program, whether it's a new program or it's a reduction of one, it's the same program. But that's a separate story, and that's why we should all be voting.
Yeah, because see, when you're doing like a program, and let's say you have Cosmos at 1,000, and then let's say right now it's 1,600, they would have to submit for both the 1,000, and then they would have to submit one for 1,500 because you cannot exceed 50%. Okay. So, there was a lot of confusion too, Chris, because, there was a lot of things that were being said about Pennsylvania, their hours being 1,000 for barbering. Their hours are not 1,000. Their hours are 1,250 in Pennsylvania. Okay. So there was a lot of misinformation on that. And I know for a fact that Pennsylvania is 1,250 hours for their barbering. They went from 1,500 to 1,250 hours.
Yeah. I mean, I think most schools at this point understand, I think, the basic lay of the land. I think that the more interesting question is is, let's say I take my barbering program and make it from 1,500 to 1,100. And then all of a sudden there's an onslaught of people telling me I'm going to the school down the street that's only 1,000 hours, right? So now I've got to figure this out. So I believe that anytime your program is within 25%, NACCAS's rules, if your program is within 25% of the required state hours, it's a non-substantive change. So you'll be able to do it again as a non-substantive change. You'll be able to reduce it again. I'm going to confirm that with NACCAS tomorrow, and I'll let everybody know. But I could foresee that really being a sort of a scenario that happens quite a bit.
Yeah, I'll probably have to give you my phone number and text me on that, because I have 2 virtual visits this week on Zoom for 2 schools. This week I'm doing on Zoom. So I got my hands full this week. But I'll get your number, you know, and I'll, you know, and my email address. Okay. You can put it under, I'll give you the simplest email address, under lindalam49@yahoo.com.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, and then I will, you know, send me the email and I'll send you my phone number, and then we can text more on this.
Okay.
But yeah, it's kind of, I feel bad for the schools, because a lot of schools, they feel like, you know, that come January, it's going to be a very scary situation. But I think now, with a lot of the information that I've gotten, you know, I've been looking into it. The schools are just going to continue proceeding as they are until they get that non-substantive change. Yeah.
Let me go ahead and interrupt right here, Seth, just real quick.
Okay.
Chris, I think you had your hand up, and then after Chris, we'll start with Letty. Letty, if you're ready after Chris.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll let Chris, you're muted, Chris. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, just to reinforce what Seth said about the absurdity of the NACCAS position. So you can either have your non-substantive change be 1,000 hours, or you can have it be 100 hours, or you can have the other one be 100 hours, 1,000 hours and non-substantive, and the other one is substantive. You can switch it back and forth. Just if you do a second one, NACCAS wants to charge you 3 times as much for the second one. There's no substantive reason to do that. It's just a form of taxation. You know, there's no accreditation here. There's no valuation. These are all shorter versions of programs we've already done.
Yeah.
And to charge 2 different rates, depending on which one we do first, is insane.
Yeah. I mean, hence the fact we all have options of who we can vote in and write in. And I think we all need to really, really be paying attention to that. All of us NACCAS schools, because there's a lot at stake here. There's a lot at stake. And you know, I don't foresee it getting easier if we don't, you know, get a commission that's going to, you know, stand up on its own. So
yeah,
you know,
unfortunately, with, you know, some of these agencies, it's a little bit about, you know, getting their fees and their monies, and, you know, unfortunately, it is what it is. Mr. Riggins, I see your hand up. I'm not too sure if you had a question.
Yes, I did. From Riggins and Barber College. Just listen to the information. One of my biggest things, because we NACCAS approved, is the pay period. Like, because right now they pay out, like NACCAS paid 0 to 450, 9, 1200. Like, how would that work for the 1,000-hour program? And then and it was kind of touched on the subject area. I know it's kind of a 2-part question. Is that the tuition?
Yeah. How's the inside look?
Go ahead.
So that's a good question, Mr. Riggins. I think Leticia Ruelas is going to touch on that right now.
Bonnie, mute your phone, Bonnie. Bonnie,
somebody's
Trying to
talking in
get
the
back onto
background.
Zoom and I'm not having.
Bonnie, mute you. There you go.
Okay. So go ahead, Leticia. Go ahead and you can start your PowerPoint presentation, and we'll go from there, and then Bonnie will chime in after that.
Okay. Hi, my name is Leticia Ruelas from RGM. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Before I start, I just want to give you a little bit of heads up on the comment that it was making earlier. For example, once you get approved for your 1,000 hours or your 1,200 hours, if the student already has 1,000 hours, or let's say 1,100 hours, and you're going to graduate the student based on, because they already have the hours and you got paid in financial aid, it's very important that you don't, it's not going to be a regular withdrawal or return of Title IV. If the student graduates, you need to adjust the Title IV based on the 1,000 hours that you're graduating the student. And the reason I'm bringing that up, because it's very clear, the department brought that up about, I think, a year or 2 years ago, saying that if you're a clock hour school, which most of you are, you need to, if you graduate the students with less hours than what they enrolled for, you need to adjust Title IV funding based on those hours. So if you got paid for the last payment period the student was in, that would have been 1,200 or 1,250 hours. You need to adjust the Title IV to the 1,000 hours, not the 1,250 you paid. And you don't do a regular withdrawal refund policy, because a regular withdrawal refund policy would be able to keep more money. You would not do that if you graduate the student. I just wanted to point that out just to make sure.
Letty, let me ask you a question about that. I don't
Sure.
think if let's say my program is 1,500 hours currently and they complete 1,300, I can't graduate them unless they complete 1,500 hours.
No, I'm just saying if when you get approved on your new program for, let's say, 1,200 hours,
Mhm.
and the student decides that they want to graduate and transfer to the 1,200 and you're going to graduate, because I think Ms. Rosalinda said that you would do a contract addendum or new
Yeah, it's
contract
not
for
an
0
addendum.
hours
Yeah.
and graduate them. I wanted to make sure I point that out. If you do a new contract addendum for 0 hours and graduate the student for 1,200, you need to adjust the Title IV if you already paid them for 1,250.
I see.
Example. Yeah,
so
no,
what
I
about-
understand. If you graduate them for
Yeah.
1,500, obviously you keep it. Yeah.
Yeah, but so what about the scenario that I suggested? I don't graduate them. They've got 1,300 hours. I drop them and then I re-enroll them in the new program for 1,000 hours.
Okay, then that would be different. You would do a return of Title IV
Based
based
on the
on that.
1,500.
Yes,
Based on
correct.
the 1,500. Okay, so
Yes.
that's probably the simplest and best way to do it.
Yes,
Okay.
because if
Okay.
you but if they already have the hours and they don't want to do any more hours, that would be a different situation. Yes.
Okay. Okay. All
I
right.
want to make sure, because the department is really looking at that now. And I'm seeing it very clear. Okay. I'm going to go over, I went over some scenarios last week. I'm going to go over with scenarios. I'm going to go over with the prorations on a 1,000-hour program, a 1,200-hour program, and a 1,500-hour program. Okay. The first, if you decide to keep your hour with an academic year of 900 hours and 26 weeks, the first budget for all 3 programs will be the same. So the first budget won't change. I'm going by a student that's Pell eligible and a student that has a need for a sub loan. That's how I'm doing my example. Obviously, if the students are not Pell eligible, they will not be eligible for this amount here. The Pell will be eligible based on their EFC if they're eligible for Pell. So the first budget, the first 900 hours will be $64.95 for Pell for the 21-22, and the first year sub will be $3,500. For an independent student, you could get up to $6,000 in unsub, and unsub for dependent student will be $2,000. Okay. Then we're going to go to the second year for her 100 hours. So somebody asked about the payment periods.
Letty, by chance, do you have the
Oh, sure.
PowerPoint presentation? Or are you showing?
Oh,
your
yeah. Oh,
screen?
I'm not showing it. Oh, I'm showing. Oh, I was showing it. I don't know. Sorry. I'm sorry. Can you show my screen? I thought I was showing my screen. I am so sorry. Okay. I'll go back to my first shot. Can you see it now? Yeah. Thank you, Willie. I'm sorry. Okay. So the first lot will be the first 900 hours. you would have the first budget, all three programs, the 1,000, the 1,200, and the 1,500 hours, the first budget will be the same. If you decide to, let's say you're gonna have one academic year for the 1,000-hour program, if you're gonna have one academic, I'm sorry, my desk decided to move. If you're gonna have one budget for the 1,000-hour program, the students will lose 100 hours in the second academic year. If you do the whole one budget for 1,000, I recommend that you do the first academic year of 900 hours in 26 weeks and the second budget for 100 hours. So the first budget will be $64.95 for Pell for an EFC of 0, $3,500 for sub, unsub 6,000 for an independent student, unsub 2,000 for a dependent student. Okay. For the second year, it would be 100 hours. So somebody asked, I think the barbering school asked about the payment periods. So for 100 hours, it would be only one payment period. If the hours left are more than half of an academic year, then you would have to divide it into 2 payment periods the second year. So in this case, 900 divided into 2 is 450. So it's less than 450 hours. So you would only have one payment period. So you have 450, 450, then $100, 100 hours. You only have to have one payment period in the second award year. So the prorations would be based on the Pell, $64.95 divided 900 times 100 hours. You have $721 in Pell. And sub will be 500. And unsub independent will be 667. And 2,000 for dependent will be 223 dollars.
Wow.
Do we have a question?
Why are we even
Hi,
talking
yes.
1,000 hours?
If I may chime in just for a minute here.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, hope everybody's doing well, and this afternoon, everybody, and very happy to be here in this meeting. I'm Nick Blout. I'm the director at John Western International in Long
Nick.
Beach. Oh, hi, Bonnie. How you doing? That's Bonnie. Everybody knows Bonnie. It's my financial aid director. She's wonderful. I just want to say a couple of things to everybody, okay, and my thoughts here, and I'll keep it short and simple. First, I'm gonna say first myself, as our school is John Western International, I'm not moving. These the barbering course. I'm not moving it down to 1,000 hours. Cosmetology, because of the whole NACCAS requirements, everybody knows. Sure, like I'm moving down to 15, but not 1,000 hours. I'm gonna say this real simply: us in this industry right here, first the barber and beauty industry, for schools. If this state legislation never passed, we wouldn't be in this conversation right now. I think personally, we should just keep it simple for ourselves and logical, being that all of the schools, and I'm doing this myself for this school, don't put our courses down to 1,000 hours. And I say this for a few different reasons. First reason, I'm gonna say, as schools, educators, I think we have a responsibility to our students to want to make sure they succeed and get their best education. And I'm sure everybody's with me on that. What I mean by that is, right now, let's take the barbering course, 1,500 hours. We cut off a third of that down to 1,000 hours, and we can go over the fine points, which is valid, about what happens with financial aid, et cetera, et cetera. Reality is, if you take a student who is 1,500 hours, we knocked it down to 1,000 hours just because the state of California says it's a minimum. And again, emphasizing minimum 1,000 hours, we don't have to do this. These students, for what I observe with them, honestly, they really benefit from being in school the whole 1,500 hours. Knocking down to 1,000 hours, I think does an injustice to what will be future barbers, cosmetologists. And I also think it overcomplicates the whole situation for us as a school. Again, we shouldn't be putting ourselves through additional headaches in this industry just because our state representatives got together and decide, hey, let's add this complication. It's just not necessary. I say we keep this simple. My school is not putting any course down to 1,000 hours. I'm not doing it. I think it's the injustice to students, and it just really gives a headache we don't need. I highly recommend all of you out there, and all of you guys are wonderful, to do the exact same thing. If we all do the same thing, not to go down 1,000 hours, we're in compliance. Again, just to remind everybody, the state legislation says a minimum of 1,000 hours. That's not a maximum. We know this already. So we keep it the same and less headache. And I think it's a better justice to all of our students. We just keep it simple. We don't need to, and somebody else here earlier in this conversation mentioned that moving forward, we really don't have to put it down to 1,000. I think we should do that. Just keep it not at 1,000.
Okay, so this is Leticia again. You guys could have this conversation.
Exactly.
I was asked last week to show, because a lot of schools want to have options. They want to be able to have the 1,500 and they want to have 1,200 and 1,000. That's going to be you guys' thing. I just want to show you the presentation about what the students could be losing at the same time if you go to 1,000, 1,200. So I'm going to finish this presentation, take me another 5-10 minutes, and then you guys could figure out what you guys decide as schools, what courses, because you have, I think based on what's going on and when I'm hearing a lot of schools, you need to have options, because there's going to be options for students out there, because I don't see everybody staying at the 1,500 hours.
No.
But I agree. The students will get more benefit by completing the program in 1,500 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and then I'll sign out, and then the schools could decide, talk about your hours of what program length you want to keep it at.
Yeah,
thank you, Leticia. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Letty. Well said. John, Wesley, thank you as well. I'm 100% with you guys, but
I agree. Yeah.
Letty's gonna just give us a little rundown.
Yeah, I'm not here to tell you to. I'm not here to tell you to put your program at the 1,000 hours. That's what I'm just here to tell you what the students could be eligible or what they're losing if they go to 1,000 hours.
Let's go ahead and
Thank you, Leticia, and we know we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, Letty.
So on the second one here for the 100 hours, this one would be only one payment period. So you would have the proration based 100 hours, 721 in pay. Then you have the sub and the unsub and the unsub for dependent student. And this will be 721 for second year, 500 and 667 for independent, and 223 for dependent. So here is the total. So based on what you would get before, well, John Wesley was saying this is a comparison when you have 17,883 gross versus 1,500 hours versus 27,325. So the difference from the 1,500 hour program in Title IV funding is 27,325 compared to the 1,000 hours, it's 17,883. So this is for 1,000 hours. For the 1,200 hour, you would have the first year the same. Then you have the second year will be 300 hours. Okay. And here you would still, the barbering program, the barbering school that asked earlier, you would still be at one payment period here. So you would be at 450, 450, and then 300. Okay. You would be 450, 450, and then 300. So you would still be at 3 payment periods. Then you had 6,495 into 900 times 3. You would have 2,164 in pay, 1,500 in sub, 2,000 in unsub. The same proration applies to all of it. And then you have 67 for dependent for unsub. So you would have a pay, 2,164, 2,164, 1,500 in sub, 2,000 for an independent on unsub, and 667 for dependent. And this will be the total for 1,200 hours, 21,659 for gross, because for the gross loans, and then total for dependent gross will be 16,326. And then for the 1,500 hour program, on here, it would be the same for the first year. On this one, you will have 4 payment periods. Before 450, 450, then it was 300 and 300. So in this case, you would have 4. You 0 to 450, 451 to 900, and then the 901 to the 1,200, and 12012, 1,500. And then this would be the amount, the 4330 for Pell, sub 3,000, unsub 4,000. And then this would be your total, 27,325. Then total for dependent grows 20,658. So there is a big difference from the, obviously from the 1,000 hours to the 1,500. But the reason we wanted to show you, I was asked to show you this so people could have an idea what each program would be paying you. If I went too fast, any questions, go ahead and ask me, and then I'll let you guys talk.
By the way, real quick, as we did this last week, we will have this available to be emailed to people so that everybody can get it. The PowerPoint, I already have it on my computer, so Willie and myself, we can get it out there.
Okay.
But as Letty said, we asked her to do these 3 scenarios because they're most likely going to be somewhere where most schools land. But if not, you can certainly see it's pretty much pro rata across the board. If you go 1,300 hours, you can figure out the math pretty simply. So thank you, Letty.
You're welcome. Yeah. If there's any questions or.
Letty, could you talk real quick about the process of getting the new program added to the e-car of a school?
Yeah, what I suggested last week, I don't know what process each school's gonna do, but if you go ahead and you have it, you get eligible for, let's say 1,200 hours or 1,500, I would suggest to add the program in the Department of Education. It's not like NACCAS are gonna charge you for an individual program. I would go ahead and add a program and leave your 1,600 hour program in the e-car in case you're gonna be teaching out the students that are 1,600 hours. So if there's students that are decided to stay for the 1,600 hours, don't change the 1,600 hours, add one. And once you teach it out and your students are finished, you're able to go into the e-car and put an end date for that program. And then you would take away and put an end date on the 1,600 hours.
Letty, on the e-car, can we go in already and start modifying or adding?
No, you have to be approved by,
okay.
Yeah, no, DOE is the
By
last
everybody.
one. Yeah, you have to be approved by the last one.
Okay.
Now, if you're, I have to look for all the bullets. If you're not on probation, and then there's another one, if you just open and the school was in a previous school, if it's because it's the same scope, you could notify the department that you have a new program because it's under the same scope, but you already had to have the approvals from the 3 agencies. Yeah, you cannot go ahead, I'm going to be eligible for this one, and you're not approved by your state and your accrediting agency. And then you're able to notify them about the new program, and you still could do financial aid on a new program because it's under it's under the scope of your same school, but you cannot be on provisional. That's very clear. You have to wait for approval.
Okay, Letty, well, I appreciate you being here, and
Anytime.
It's great, having this information. This way, schools can make the best decision as possible, whether they're going to go down to 1,000, 1,200, 13, 14, 1,500. This way, once, our schools that are with RGM, you being here with us, it'll, prevent us from calling you all the time and texting you. So thank you.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, my understanding is that if the student is contracted for the 1,600 hours before December 31st, of course, during the enrollment process, you have to inform the student about the 1,000-hour course and whether you're going to offer it or not. It's their decision. If they say, yes, I want to take the 1,500-hour barbering course, that contract remains in force even after the change after January 1. The only way they can get out of it is if you drop them. If they say this 1,000 hours, and you could re-enroll them, but I don't think that our school is going to do that. But may I say one thing as far as an educator as well, and a licensed cosmetologist, you can't get through 23 chapters of barbering and 32 chapters of the Milady textbook, which is the foundation for the basics, in less than 6 months. And that's what the 1,000 hours comes out to. Okay. You just can't do it. And I've talked to shop and salon owners, and they said they wouldn't hire people with 1,000 hours. They don't have the skill set. They don't want to train them. They're dependent on the schools to train them. So I'm just hoping that all the accredited schools will stand their ground, stand united, because divided we fall, and we all say, let's stay at the 1,500 hour mark for Cosmo and Barbary and do justice to our students. And I know one thing, Nick, we talk to our students. They don't want the 1,000 hour course. They want the 1,500 and 1,600 hour courses.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
And just one thing, Seth and Willie,
Yeah.
I'm gonna believe, but one thing
Yeah,
you need
Letty.
to bring up that the BP I don't know, the state board last week was very clear. You're not gonna be teaching the 1,000 hours or whatever right away on January 1st. They
Right.
have to approve it, and it could
Right.
take some months. I just wanted to make sure. I don't know if
Right.
everybody heard that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
thank you, Letty. If there's any other questions for Letty, raise your hand so that you can ask the question of Letty, or you can email, myself or Willie or whatever through the Remind app, and you can get the question asked that you need. Otherwise, let's let Letty go, and then we can talk about some further
right.
school issues that are outside of RGM and handling of financial aid.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you,
Letty.
All
Letty.
right, Letty, thank you very
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Seth, before we go on, if we could let Ms. Rosalinda Lamb just give a little bit of insight. Right before you came on, she was giving us a little bit of insight
Sure.
as far as what's going to happen on January 1st and we don't get approved. Go ahead, Ms. Rosalinda. I think we have a full house now, and I think your information will be valuable at this moment.
Yeah, okay, since like Letty said, and this is something I said earlier, that the state board's not gonna approve the programs right away on January the 1st. So you're going to continue enrolling your students as is under a 1,600 clock hour program for cosmetology and 1,500 for barbering. Now, you cannot enroll students in a 1,000 hour program until you are approved by all the agencies, which means that you still have to submit not only to the barber, but to BPPE as well. And if you are in accredited school with NACCAS, you also have to submit with them. So you have to wait until you get approval from all three to offer a 1,000 hour course. So you're going to continue enrolling your students under 1,000 hour, under 1,600 hour, excuse me. As of January 1st, you are still going to enroll them in the same manner that you are enrolling them now. Once you get your approval, like I said, it is up to you how you're going to handle it with the student. If a student says that they want to go under the 1,000 hour, then your job as a school will be to calculate the hour format under the new 1,000 hours and to make sure that the students have met those hours in theory and practical under that new criteria. So since you're at 100 hours for health and safety, 100 hours for sanitation, disinfection, 200 hours in hair chemicals, 200 hours in hairstyling section, 150 hours in skincare, and 50 hours in hair removal and eyelash beautification, and 100 hours instructions in manicuring, pedicuring, and artificial nail services. So if the student has met the criteria and has met the required hours of technical and practical in those categories, and they want to make an addendum change, that is going to be up to you. But if they did not reach those hours in each criteria, they're going to have to continue doing their hours until they reach that. Then at that point, then if you're under a new contract with that student, you change them over and they still haven't met, then you have to put the additional hours that they're still going to be required to do. So I would advise you, like even Bonnie was saying, who the other gentleman was, I'm sorry, I was a little bit distracted doing legal paperwork in between. But other than that, I would advise you just to keep them under the current contract. And even if they're under that new contract, you know, some of your students may want to stay on that new contract of the 1,600 hours from January. Some students may not, but you can't make any changes right away. Okay, you're going to have to stay with your 1,600 hour, 1,500 hours until you get your approval.
Real quick, okay? It's not, I appreciate what you're saying, but that's a little bit off. And that is that if you submit, we've been told that if you submit for non-substantive change with NACCAS for your new program, you'll get approved by means of accreditation from the BPPE. The BBC, it also has it down to a one-page form at this point. Very simply, they just want to see what the curriculum is. They don't even want to see the day-by-day breakdown of it. They said,
Correct.
Just give us the gist of it. They have told us basically that you are going to basically get approved by January 1st or very close to it. But that's only if you do this as non-substantive changes. If you're looking to get a brand new program approved, it is going to definitely take much longer than January 1st, okay? So that being said, if you do the simplest method possible, and let's say you decide to do 1,200 hours, okay? You can teach out all your existing students up until January 1st. Anyone that's enrolled before January 1st can do out the remaining, all the hours that they originally enrolled under. If you decide that they're going to drop and go to your new program, then you're responsible for looking at what is transferable from the old program to the new program. And then you can drop them and re-enroll them in the new one. If they have additional hours to do to get to whatever your new course is, then they have additional hours to do. If they have more hours, then you are responsible for looking at what they did under the old program and seeing if it fits what's under the new program. And if it is, you can issue them a proof of training, provided they have at least 1,000 hours or whatever your new program is. So in my case, if it's barbering and I decide to do it for 1,200, then they have to have 1,200 hours and make sure they've met all the criterion of SB803, and I can issue them a proof of training. Now, if I have a student who has not done all the stuff, then I can say to them, look, if you want to be in the new program, you're going to have to get all this work done for all these hours before you can be dropped. In which
That's
case,
correct.
I would keep them under the old program, because my new program only allows for 1,200 hours. So if they have more than that, then they would stay under the new one. But if you decide that you want to go the easiest route possible, you'll probably get going by the first week of January. And you can just teach out all your old students under the old way. This is what the BPPE has said. It's what NACCAS has said. It's what the BBC has said. Now, it might not happen, but most of them have said this is going to happen. There's 130 schools in California that are accredited that offer financial aid. They are going to make this work for most of us, if not all of us. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge disaster, which they want to avoid. The question is, do you want to offer more than what the minimums are or not? I think most schools are going to be offering more than the minimums, at least the financial aid schools, because we recognize that the students need it, that there's not enough money to educate them, that students don't want to come in with cash. There's a lot of reasons why that this is going to happen. I don't think that it's realistic to tell schools that every school should be at 1,500 hours. It's up to each individual school. But I can tell you, after talking to many, many schools, after being part of all the stuff that the PBFC is doing, that the vast majority of schools are not looking to do 1,000 hours. And I don't think they're going to. I wish that we could all find a day where we're all on the same team and we all agree that this, but I think that most schools intuitively know that it can't be done in 1,000 hours.
It cannot. You're correct,
Well,
because I technically did the breakdowns, and
It can.
4,000
It
is
can.
not enough. Yeah.
It can, and it will be done by some schools, probably the schools that don't have financial aid, probably the schools that are out there selling hours in the first place. Okay.
Right.
But that's a separate issue. Okay.
Let me go
That's a
ahead
separate
and
story.
have Dee Dee Crossett had her hand up. Go ahead, Dee Dee. Can you hear me? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Dee Dee Crossett. I have the San Francisco Institute of Aesthetics and Cosmetology. We have nails, SD, barber, and cos in the city, and we're here for 20 years. So we're trying to figure this out as well, because I have a space situation. I've got all this space for people that are going to be in the building for a long time, and now I'm trying to and we're hybrid, right? So people can be at home for theory and on campus for whatever. One of the things that I was curious about in regards to the substantive change form, being that this is a statewide change, and being that we've all, or I just had my visit with NACCAS, my renewal visit in September, which, by the way, they're still behind. So
Yes.
for anyone to say that NACCAS is going to be able to turn anything around, I promise you, I had a very clean inspection. There's nothing. It was change the period and the catalog, really easy stuff we fixed before they even arrived on campus. And I still don't have the letter that's supposed to come within 21 days of my inspection saying that I'm good to go.
Because I was
So
just at
they
that
are
workshop.
not on track. So I don't know how they're going to do. If they can't get my renewal from September 9th completed, I don't know how they're going to turn this around. But the substantive change form, is there a reason why? Because we've all been approved for 1,600 and 1,500 hours. If that's been in existence and we know how to do it and we don't have any violations and we're all good to go, why couldn't we submit the change form for the same thing? I'm going to take my 1,600-hour program, I'm submitting my 1,500-hour change form and my 1,000-hour for Cosmo. Why wouldn't I be able to submit one form for both? I'm already offering this program. So is there something in the NACCAS regs, does anyone know, that says when you have a program, like a 1,600-hour cosmetology program, I can't submit a form that says I'm going to submit my sub form for 1,000 and a sub form for 1,500?
Okay, I can tell
I
you.
can answer that question.
Okay,
NACCAS has a non-substantive change form to decrease hours in a course. Okay, if you go to there's two non-substantive change forms. One is for a consultant and one is for courses. And on the second page, it will say decrease. So you could write what courses you want to decrease your hours. That's all you have to do.
yeah.
Right.
you
But what
can-
I'm saying is, why can't I submit it twice?
Dee, it's a non-substantive change because NACCAS has said that they're only going to allow one of them. You can't do both, right? Because
But
one
does
of
it
them,
say that in writing though? Because they can only tell you something if it's in writing. So if it doesn't say in writing, you can only do this once,
by the way,
then they can't hold you
they're
to
not
that.
supposed to, they're not supposed to allow it to go down more than what is it? 25%, I believe.
50%.
Yeah, it's
50%
50%.
minimum you can add to the course. That would give you
That's-
1,500 hours. But
No, I'm
in
not talking
order
about
to
that,
go-
Bonnie. It's a
well, in order to go
non-substantive
for the
change.
for the Cosmo down to 15 or 1,000, you have to do a decrease. Okay, and the form list, you can add, if it's 4 courses you're decreasing, you can do it all at one time with NACCAS.
Yeah, but no, what I'm saying is that NACCAS allows you to do a 25% increase or decrease as a non-substantive change. That's in their rules.
No,
That's in
they
the
allow you
bylaw.
to do a 50% too.
No, you can do up to 50%. But
Right.
I believe
right.
the rule is 25% automatically.
Right. No, I know
you
that.
can- Okay, so the question
But it
becomes,
doesn't
how
say
do
that
you
you
do
can't
two
do
of
it
them?
twice for
That's a
one
good question.
course.
Well,
So
I
I
don't know how
why
you
I would
submit.
submit it twice.
That's
There's two
a very
forms.
good question. I guess we need to find out. That's a very good question.
Because
that
I'm
would
already
certainly
approved
make
for
it easier.
1,600. And if they think, oh, okay, you could submit for 15 or you could submit for 1,000. Well, why can't I just submit for both? If you're going to allow me to do them, if you think I can effectively do a 1,500 from a 16, or I can
Actually-
effectively do 1,000 from a 16, why would I not just submit for both?
No,
And
Dee Dee-
the state of California doesn't care. They're going to give me
Dee Dee,
my approval for both, and the e-card
with-
doesn't care.
Dee, with NACCAS, and I'll give you an example. With NACCAS, if you want to have a 1,200-hour course in cosmetology and a 15, you're going to do the decrease for 100 hours in your regular cosmetology program, but you're going to have to do an add course, just like
Yeah.
they did when we had the crossover, when it went from 400 hours down to 200 hours. It has to be an additional course, and you have to do that whole application.
You can't
Yeah,
have two
but-
courses.
No, that's not true, because when
No, but
hybrid
you can't
came
have
out,
two courses. You can't have
no,
two
no,
courses.
no, no. Let
under
me
the same
finish.
thing.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
Because when temporary distance learning came out, you could have two courses. You could have your TDL for temporary distance learning and now your hybrid. So I'm actually in cosmetology right now. I have a 1,600-hour cosmetology program. I have a TDL because San Francisco is still on emergency status. So I have a temporary distance learning where I can do 75 at home and 25 on campus. And I got my hybrid approved so I can do 50-50. So I have 3 approvals for a 1,600-hour program, all which were done with the substantive change form. So why can't I then submit a
You
substantive
mean
change form?
non-substantive change?
Or
Non-substantive change?
Well, that's the 7A, whatever
Yeah,
that
but,
one is.
we also had a pandemic, and within 24 hours, all 3 agencies approved every school in California.
Right.
And so
Right,
we're
but
not,
what I'm
we're not,
saying
you know,
is
we're not
that
in that
I do have
scenario.
multiple programs under that 1,600-hour cause.
Then
I
you
have
might be
temporary
lucky.
distance learning and hybrid. They didn't take it away. So I still have my on-campus learning. I don't have
Well,
to do.
temporary, but temporary is
No, but
temporary,
I still
right?
have my full 1,600-hour program. They don't force you to pick hybrid or not. They allow you to have both.
Okay,
So I don't know
look,
why they wouldn't
so look,
allow it.
So look, I know of a school down in San Diego that's got 3 different cosmetology courses currently approved with NACCAS. They're certainly going to be able to do this much easier than most schools because they have 3 courses approved, right? But if you only have 1 course approved, I don't believe NACCAS is going to allow you to splinter it into 2 courses and say, this one's this and this one's that as non-substantive changes. I'm going to ask them because that's a good question.
But my
right?
understanding is NACCAS doesn't really get to decide. It has to be in writing. So unless it says somewhere in writing, they can make a call. Like they made a call during COVID. They made a call that said, hey, emergency status, this is a situation. We got to make this decision quick because campuses are closed. So in my mind, this is the same thing. This is an emergency situation. We've got till January 1st. We're going to allow you to do these things, fill out this form. They can do it.
Well, they
It
are.
is
They're giving you.
possible.
They're giving
Really,
it to
I
you.
believe
They're
that the
giving you
letter
one.
that Mary Nell responded to me and you addresses the situation. You might want to forward it to her tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've
that-
given you the one.
Let me
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
interject here.
Sorry.
Did he, yeah, so like Bonnie said, you know, we've been emailing Mary Nell Myers, who apparently is the only one that works at NACCAS because nobody else answered the phone. So you know, that's probably going to be the best person to contact. And,
Yeah, I've been in contact with her as
Oh,
well.
okay,
I'm just
so-
curious if the sense, it just doesn't make logical sense. if
Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah,
let people
I
have
completely
multiples,
hear what you're saying. You know, they were able to do complete miracles when COVID came around, you know, and now that we're kind of getting back to, you know, the hang of things, they're like going back to their normal selves. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that, you know. So I completely understand, you know, what you're saying. But yeah, I guess, you know, we're just gonna just go round and round in circles here. And you know,
yeah,
we have
and then I'll
plans.
let it go. But I was just curious
Yeah.
if anybody knew on the NACCAS thing. And the other part is I know a lot of the votes, and I don't know the drama that's gone on at NACCAS, but I have seen all the emails where it's like, write my name in and pay it. So clearly something went down and I don't get it because I'm not in the loop. But do we know who believes in what out of all these people that are voting? Because you can't really tell in the emails and the flyers. Is there some
Yeah, I'm
insights?
not too sure.
How do we
about
figure out
that.
who we're supposed to vote
Ask
for?
Bob Gross. The voting thing is corrupt right now. I don't know what's
But-
going on with it.
Real quick, Didi. Real quick,
Yeah.
Didi. I can tell you who the PBFC thinks, and I can tell you who other groups think.
Okay,
You know,
or you
I'm
can
not
email
telling
that out.
anybody who the vote. Yeah, I mean, look, I can tell you that most people think that Sal, Papa Goda, I think his name is, Lethea, who I think we all know, and then I think Deborah, who lately has been sending out things. I think all of them are in line with what most small schools, which most of us are, is really what we're in line for. And when you want to talk about what NACCAS can do or not do, nowhere in their bylaws does it say they can arbitrarily pick whoever they want to run for the commission. So anybody who's qualified technically is supposed to be able to run. If you're qualified, you're supposed to be able to run. They have decided that they're only going to let certain people run.
Okay, that's what happened.
So,
All right.
and even if you read the thing that they mailed all of us and we all got it, I would assume it even says in there very clearly that if there's one person wins and the other person comes second, if the person that comes second basically is more qualified, they're going to decide that the person who comes second wins. So they wrote that in there, that basically they're going to, you have got to be qualified in their eyes in order to sit on the commission. And there's no real specifics. They give specifics as to what you can't be. But why they didn't allow certain people to run and certain people were allowed to run when apparently they were all technically equals is a bigger question for NACCAS. But that's why we all need to vote. It's these issues right now that we're all talking about, which is why the PBFC schools only division, you know, council and all the things that are going on right now, we as schools have got to start coming together about this, because let's face it, if the PBFC hadn't have called, you know, Jazz and Mark and Jazz hadn't rallied all of us schools from, you know, Western Kit and Jazzy Beauty, we wouldn't even have known about what SB803. And it was their fighting that got the 1,000 hours or more added. Initially, the law proposed you didn't have to be licensed to cut hair. My kid could cut hair. I mean, it was ridiculous. We were asleep. As schools, we were asleep. So now we all have got to come together and figure this out. And we obviously quickly, because this is just the first bite at the apple for these guys. It's not going to get easier. They're doing it nationwide. And so, you know, that's a separate story, but I really encourage you to take a look at the PBFC and what they're doing right now and what they're trying to put together, because they're the ones that fought NACCAS about getting refunds for fees that were gotten during the pandemic. They got a lot of schools a $2,500 refund. I know I got one for when NACCAS visited me, but they never did visit me because there was a pandemic, but I paid for the whole thing. They got me a $2,500 refund. They got us in the reporting this year. They basically got the waiver that if you can't reach the student and they weren't able to get employed because of the pandemic and all that, they got those waivers. With only 4 states got them. We were one to get it. You know, there was a lot of things that took place that we got, and writing into the law that it was 1,000 hours or more, which obviously I think most of us schools think is a great thing. I know I do as a school. So, you know, that being said, I think the question you're asking, Dee Dee, about both of them being a non-substantive change, I'm certainly going to ask that tomorrow. It looks like Willie and Bonnie have been sort of at it already, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so
We'll
let's
see
go ahead and
yeah.
see Ms. Demi. She has her hand raised for
Sorry, Demi.
the last like couple minutes, and Chris Tellis as well. But go ahead, Ms. Demi.
You guys are fine. I just want to make sure, Rosalinda, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Because me, Chris, and another counterpart of ours, we've been working really hard at trying to figure all this out as far as like enrollment and what we're going to change everything to, as I'm sure everybody here has. But I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly when you say this. So currently right now we have our 1,500 and our 1,600 hours. I know that we are not going to get an overnight approval in January. We understand that. And of course, we are not looking at offering the 1,000 hours right away. You're going to go for 1,200 and 1,500. So I know we're going to have to, you know, work at getting those approved as new courses, right? So what I'm understanding from you is we can continue to enroll in our 1,500 and 1,600 hour programs currently, even in January, until we get our approvals for these new courses.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure because we enroll every 2 months, so I don't want to put anything on hold while we're waiting, you know, 7-8 months to figure this out, because it's been a roller coaster. So, you know, I want to make sure that we're still able to survive through all this and our students are still able to thrive, because number one concern, I'm sure for all of us, is our students and making sure that, you know, we set them up for success in this industry.
Yes, and by the way, if any of you have the NACCAS website, you can go on there regarding that, what they brought up regarding the January 1st change. And they also have a question and answer that will answer a lot of your questions on there regarding non-substantive changes and 1,500 hours and 1,000 hours. There's a lot of questions that have been put on there, and they are giving you a full explanation regarding with the upcoming changes. So I would advise you that you go on their website and go to one of their recent emails regarding the California change, and then click the link onto the question and answers and read it thoroughly, and you will get a lot of clarification under that one as well.
This is on the NACCAS website you stated?
Yeah,
Correct.
there's not that much information. It's really, it's pretty loose in terms of what they're giving you.
But answers basically is what we've been going over. So
yeah, it's not anything. It's just listening to Demi talk, I think she's got more information than what's on the website right now. But the so from her question is, if we can still enroll in January, how long can we keep going? As long as we have something in that we're waiting for approval, then you can just keep doing 1,600-hour programs until they get back to you.
Until they get back to you, correct?
So as long,
That is
but
correct.
you can't just wait on it. You have to have submitted something that you're waiting on approval, essentially.
Correct. You
You
have
have to have done
submit
something,
your-
yeah.
For your
I just think to
approvals,
make
but
that
in
clear
the
for people.
meantime-
'Cause-
But in the
Ms.
meantime, go ahead.
Yeah, where can we get that information, or where is that information noted so that we have that in some type of publication that so we
if you
don't
go-
all get in trouble?
No, if you go over to the NACCAS website, they recently had an email that came out, which was Tuesday, October 26th, okay? And if you go over to frequently asked questions to their FA and Q, you link on there. Basically, a lot of questions that everybody's been asking today, they have those same questions with answers on there. So you can look into that. But just to let everybody know, okay, I have been with NACCAS since 2012. So, you know, being an evaluator, I also work as a PSS reviewer. So when schools have changes in hours from their state or they're adding programs, you know, usually I don't get them right away. It takes a few months for me to get them, okay? So I'm just gonna be honest with everybody in that department there, okay? So when I get them, it's my job to go over it and to go through everything that I'm required to do and then to submit within a certain time frame. So usually I try to submit as soon as I can with them, so it's not holding up. At that point, then it's up to NACCAS to as to when they notify the schools. Once it goes out of my hands back to NACCAS, it's up to NACCAS to notify the schools. Now, I did go to the workshop in September, okay? And it was quite an interesting workshop because, you know, being an evaluator, when I go into the evaluator day, there's a lot of stuff we go over. But with this change that we're having in California, okay, it doesn't seem like, you know, but come January 1st, that everything's gonna happen between BPPE and Department of Ed and everyone all these other agencies. We're still going to have to deal with a waiting time frame, but I'm just hoping that the time frame isn't gonna be as long. Okay, so I hope
Okay.
everybody understands that.
Where would we be able to get that information so that we have it in writing ourselves, that come January 1st, we're allowed to continue with our normal current operations that we have now until we actually get approval from them, so that January 1st comes around and we're still enrolling students at 1,600 hours. And then a month down the road or 2 months on the road, when we finally get approval, they say, oh no, you had approval till February, you couldn't enroll no students, so we don't get in trouble.
Yeah, you're just going to continue rolling them until the state board sends that notification out. Okay, so like, you know, Willie, it's a touch and go with this whole situation. Okay, and I understand a lot of people are having a lot of issues with that, but until your school is approved for 1,000 hours, if you're going to carry that program as well, you're going to continue enrolling them under your current hours. And then once you get those approvals to enroll those students, then you're going to enroll them in that program. It's just like, you know how when you add a program to your school, right? And anytime you're going to get approval, you know, you have to wait until you're approved before you can enroll them under that program. Okay. But because our hours are being changed in California, and it's a really touchy situation, and it's kind of like, you know, a lot of schools are concerned. Until you get approval, if you're a 1,600 clock hour school and a 1,500 hour barber clock hour school, you're going to continue enrolling them until you get those approvals. So your contracts are going to remain the same until then. Then after they get the approval, it's going to be up to the school as to how you decide how you're going to want to put that into play, especially if your students come into your office and they say they want to change. But if they want to change, like I said earlier, Willie, I said that they would have to meet the requirements under that 1,000-hour program. They would have to have met all those hours and all those subject criteria, and it has to add up to each and every clock hour that they have established under the guidelines. It
Thank
can't
you.
be just, okay, I had 1,200, and then your student is below the criteria. It doesn't work that way. If they're below the criteria, they have to continue till they meet the criteria.
Okay.
Willie.
Thank you, Ms. Lamb. Let me,
Let Chris-
yeah, I see you
Chris-
said,
Chris talk.
Chris is up there. He's been waiting a couple minutes as well. Chris, you're up next on the prices,
Okay.
right?
Thank you, Willie. I think it was Deidre who was speaking from San Francisco, but actually it is in writing. In the frequently answered questions section on NACCAS, it clearly says that if you have two programs of differing lengths, one 1,000 and 1,500 or any other combination, the first one is non-substantive and the second one is substantive. So that's the way it is right now. I'm not saying it's logical, that's illogical, but that's the way NACCAS is handling it right now. Secondly, this discussion really points out about how important it is to manage student expectations, because it's clear to me that it's going to be a long, long time before any of these courses are properly approved. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that NACCAS will not entertain an application until you have your state application first. So any sense that all these things are going to happen simultaneously is incorrect. So you have to wait for the state to give your approvals, the two agencies, then you submit to NACCAS. And as we know, NACCAS is extremely backed up right now. And if there are 150 schools that are applying simultaneously for non-substantive and substantive programs, it's going to take a long time. Certainly the substantive program, I can't see NACCAS approving anything until the middle of 2023, based on my experiences with them in other things I've had to have approved in the last year. But the other thing I want to point out is another example of how unfair this is to students and an issue of managing the student expectations. We can't let them think that this is about to happen. We have to tell them that things are the same as they always were. The courses we've always offered. We've all applied and we are waiting for the agencies to approve it. But the other issue is, and I know we're not going to offer 1,000-hour programs, but it's clear that if you offer a 1,000-hour program, you're going to have to change your hourly prices, because you still have the same infrastructure, you still have the same lighting, you still have the same salaries. So if you're charging 12 an hour, you're going to go to 15 an hour or something like that. And if you look at the Pell that's available, suddenly there's a much larger delta between what you're allowed to get in grants and what you're allowed and what your tuition actually is, which means that as a result of dropping the hours, the students are going to most likely end up with more college debt than they had under the longer programs. And it's just another example of the unfairness. So, here's a situation where they're not going to be trained properly and they're going to have less money. That's why it is so important. Two things we need to do. Number one, we need to agree as a group on some kind of standard, like a 1,200 barber and a 1,500 cosmetology, which is what we're doing at Cal CBC. The other thing, it would be very helpful for us to put together a list of agreed upon questions to these people that are running for NACCAS commissioner, so we can pose all the same questions to them, so we can find out who are the people that are probably going to represent us and are going to properly create NACCAS reform, so this kind of lunacy of these multiple charges and this hoop jumping we have to go through gets dialed down a little bit. That's all.
Willie. So
Yeah,
Willie,
go
real
ahead.
quick.
Go ahead, Seth. Thank you.
So look, in the meeting we had last week with the state board and with the BBC, okay, I mean the BPPE, they basically said that if you go non-substantive, that they're really targeting January 1st, that they're going to get most of these approvals out by then. And I really think that they're going to. I look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think we need to really delineate between between non-substantive changes and substantive changes. Okay, because what Rosalinda is saying, and Chris, I think is 100% accurate if you're doing a substantive change. But a non-substantive change is literally a rubber stamp. And NACCAS isn't asking to see any curriculum or anything like that. The BBC said, just write up a synopsis of what you're going to be teaching and make sure it covers what the law states. They didn't ask for every hour to be delineated by days or anything like that. They said, don't photocopy what we have listed in the law, but basically just reiterate it, is what they said. So I don't see this taking much longer than the middle of January if you're doing the non-substantive change route. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? The real issue is if you're going to be doing the substantive changes. And that's up to each individual school as to what they think is the best thing for them. And certainly they'll be able to. And certainly some schools might have multiple courses approved or whatever. And so they might have different opportunities. But I think that we should really delineate between the two, because they set it up for the non-substantive change to be the easiest way to get this done. And when I'm talking to them, they're telling me that they think they're going to meet these deadlines. That's what they're saying. It's a $750 charge. I'm gonna contemporaneously submit NACCAS and the BBC at the same time. The BPPE said that they're planning on doing this by means of accreditation, more or less, they said. So for most schools, if it's a non-substantive change route, it's probably not going to take that long. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's what they said, Willie. And so I think we should really be careful about this, about talking about, you should make sure 100% that you can enroll people under your old program once the new law goes into effect. Because there could be repercussions for that as well. That law goes into effect January 1st. So I think everybody needs to make sure they get that in writing, that, you know, you can still do that. Now, I know you can teach out what you have. That's in the law. And all of them have a provision for teach outs and things like that, which, by the way, the question came up about, if you drop a student from one program and put them in the other, do you have to pay double the fees for the strut? Which they basically said no, but we're trying to get more clarification on that as well. So, because, you know, then you've got two sets, right? But, you know, Willie, we can probably send out the video of the last week that talks about all this stuff, because they addressed most of this. So we have the recording from the Zoom call last week with the agencies, which, you know, mostly the PBFC schools were a part of. So I think it's a good idea to listen to it, but also to maybe look at joining one of the agencies that's out there that one of the trade organizations that represents the schools, because we have got to come together, as Chris is saying. We've got to be careful about who we vote for. We've got all these things that we have to be careful about, and we need to be together and act in unity. I can tell you that I've talked to over 35 schools, and I've yet to find one that said they're just going to be teaching 1,000 hours. I did find one that's going to do it in barbering, but they enroll like 5 barbering students a year. So they're primarily cosmetology. And so their cosmetology program is not going to be 1,000 hours. And so I think the vast majority of schools are definitely going to be more than 1,000 hours. I don't really know of any that are going to be 1,000 hours, but I definitely think that the cash paying schools are going to be 1,000 hours. I think that, you know, why wouldn't they be? So that's where our real fight as schools that are accredited, or, you know, that's really where our real issues start stemming, in my opinion. Because I think most of the schools out there, we all recognize that we can't teach students in that amount. There's no way we can do it.
And I'm not
There's
trying
no
to cut
way
you
that
off,
they're gonna
Seth,
learn.
but
Yeah.
I think it's extremely important for us to really, like you said, get that in writing, or get something that says that we still can continue to enroll until we're waiting on those approvals.
right.
Because I mean, I know, you know, Mr. Tellis knows, we don't want to get dinged, but we also just can't stop enrolling students, you know, until everybody figures out what the heck's going on.
So I just sent a quick email to Mary Nell Myers, to Fred, Seth, and to Christy Underwood from the BBC with that particular question. So once we get a response, you know, I'll go ahead and disseminate it via Remind, and, you know, it'll be good to, you know, have that information. And if it is true, you know, then all the power to us to continue our programs until we get approved, whether it's in the middle of January or early February. But I agree with Seth, you know, based on what we had in the meeting last week, they're trying to do their best. And I think that one form page is going to be pretty simple to just email to. I don't know who the email goes to, but I think it's going to be pretty fast. But, you know, we don't know until we're actually there. So
I will say one thing, and we found this out from Christy again today. That is that if you have a student that's currently in your existing program, and come the time you get your new program approved, you can drop them and re-enroll them, enroll them in your new one, not re-enroll, but basically enroll them in the new program. And if they've met all the requirements, hours, and the requirements of the law of SB803, you can just issue them a proof of training, and they're going to be eligible to sit for the state board. Now, what does NACCAS say about having so many withdrawals and all that stuff? That's a separate issue we might have to deal with. The BBC which is generally, I mean, the BPPE by means of accreditation, they're not going to really look at that so much. But that's the issue maybe, is what do you do with all these withdrawals and now all of your compliance at the end of the year. I've already sent an email to NACCAS to make sure that we're not going to get dinged for that, understanding that it's from within the school to the same school, right? But they've made it very clear that we can do that. We can issue the proof of training to the new students. So really it comes down to, you've got to meet with your students and each individual one and say, look, you're currently at 1,300 hours. You just need to finish up what you're doing today. Be done at 1,500, you're out. Or you're at 700 hours. We're going to look to put you into the new course once it gets approved, right? And then it's a time to reset everything and hold their feet to the fire to make sure they get everything done. Because now it's 1,200 hours or whatever your course is going to be, right? And so it gives us an opportunity to really make sure that the students are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that, you know, they're not going over as much as most students tend to do. So I think that this is a good opportunity for all of us to reset things. But you guys get this. You guys run schools. You guys understand this. We all are in the same boat here. But they made it clear that they're going to try to get the non-substantive change through pretty quickly. And I know they can. They did it during the pandemic, right?
I think another interesting question for us was, I mean, we just got approved for our distance learning, the hybrid program. So now are we reapplying for these hybrid programs for our new programs? Like, we just paid all this money to get a hybrid program and now this program is non-existent. I mean, that's kind of what I'm like, now we got to go through all this again for these new programs. You know, it was so frustrating the first time, and we are using hybrid, you know, right now. We're still in a pandemic, you know, we may have to use online. So there's other factors too that are really important to what we're currently doing.
Yeah, it's very true. Look, you guys, we're all school owners. Most of us are approved with NACCAS in one form or another. I think there's a couple of schools on here that are accredited but don't offer financial aid yet or in the accreditation process. I don't think any of us are approved with other accreditors, which there are other accreditors out there. But that being said, you really need to pay attention to who you're going to write in and vote for. And I would keep a copy of what you send to them. So in case it has to come down to being audited by their outside firm. I mean, you would think that in a period of time where election integrity is probably the biggest thing in the world right now, other than the pandemic, that NACCAS is going to, you know, arbitrarily decide who gets to go forward to be elected or not. You would think that that would never take place, but it is. We have got to be very careful about who we vote in or who we try to get voted in. You know, right off the bat, some of the large chains, because they're not doing this on a regional basis like they used to, right off the bat, some of the large chains are going to walk in with 150 votes, 100 votes, right off the bat for who they want to win. And everybody on this call is four or five schools maximum. Most of us are one or two schools. They're small schools. The vast majority of NACCAS is made up of small schools. We've got to look at who we write in to be elected, because these are the issues that really need to be addressed. If you notice, everything's set up for your main campus and it's not so much money for your other campuses to get everything else done. That just benefits all the big schools. We've got to be very careful. Take a look. We mentioned some people today, but I know that there's been things put out there. Anybody can email me if they want a list of who a couple different organizations have put out the names of who they think. And it's generally the same names that are all surfacing. And I happen to like most of them and know most of them. And I know that they're going to put forward the fights that are important to us small schools. You know, we need to be able to fight this on a nationwide level, because what happened in California is going to happen everywhere. And once it happens everywhere, then they're going to start doing it more. They're going to start attacking the hours more and screw up an industry that's really healthy in this state. So let's, you know, anyways, enough said about all this. Thank you, Willie, for everything, for setting this up. Thanks everybody for being a part of it. And I know we've got the email to send out the PowerPoint to everybody. You got it, Willie?
Yeah, I got the email from Letty. Anybody who, I'll upload it to my website and put a link on Remind, and then they'll be able to download it on their computers, or I can email it however way they need it. You know, hopefully in about maybe after Thanksgiving, we can have another meeting and just see where everybody's at that moment and see what new news we have for everybody, or what news you guys have for us to share and move forward from here. Hopefully, you know, we can continue doing this maybe after January, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, just to kind of see, and keep in touch with everybody, and I appreciate.
Yeah, really quick. If people want to know that the PBFC is going to start a schools only council, it's going to be made up of just schools and only for-profit schools, no junior colleges, no teachers, nothing against teachers at all. Obviously, we all use them and love them, but it's going to be schools only. And it's going to be addressing these issues. And it's going to be, the purpose is to raise money and to start affecting change so that we are the ones that are putting forth the proposed laws, that we're the ones that are being asked when they're going to do this, instead of Senator Ross saying, oh, my barber said 1,000 hours would be great. And I don't want to mess that up because she's got a razor, he says. I mean, really? That's how you're going to make determination of what's appropriate? I mean, it's ridiculous. So there's a group of schools that are all coming together, and we're going to basically have the largest trade organization we can, made up of schools. It's not expensive, but we hope that it's going to get us a seat at the table. But at the very least, it's going to give us an opportunity to all communicate on a really sort of official level, and to start sharing what we're all doing, and to have best practices, and to come up with hours possibly that we all think work, and talk about these things so that we all put forth the best foot forward and really don't divide ourselves even further, which is really what killed us with the legislature more than anything. So that being said, if you guys want, anybody can email me or call me or Willie. It's all on the Remind stuff. We can get information out to people, but I encourage schools to all look at this because it's important, because we really got killed this last go around and we didn't even know it was happening. That's the worst part. I'm ashamed of myself, to be honest with you, but enough's enough. Anyways, thank you, Willie.
All right, thank you all. I don't know, I'll be here for the next maybe 5-10 minutes if you guys have any open questions or anything else that you guys want to share. If not, then just check your Remind for the next meeting, hopefully in about a month, and we'll go from there.
All right, Willie, I'm getting ready to go home now. I'm near my car here.
Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Rosalinda Lamb. Thanks
Okay.
very much for
Yeah.
sharing all that information. Great information. I think everybody benefits from that.
Yeah, I should be having more information within a month. So as soon as I can get that out, I'll get it out to you before.
And I'll share everything I got with everybody as well, Mrs. Rosalinda. It's Seth,
All right,
and
Chris.
I'll share it all. I'll share it all with Willie, and he'll get it out there to everybody. So we all help each other with this.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'll post this on YouTube so everybody can download it, and you can review it, or whatever it is that it's going to help you. And the PowerPoint, I'll send the links out later on tonight or tomorrow, so everybody will be able to review this again.
Okay, good night, everybody. Get ready to head home.
Good night. I'll still be here for a couple of minutes in case anybody has any other questions that maybe they're shy to be on the camera or something.
Who's gonna be on right now? You are?
Yeah, I'll be here for the next 5 more minutes, just in case somebody that wants to be less people, camera shy or something.
Okay. All right, Willie.
All right,
So
Ms. Lamb, you take care.
I sure will. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Okay.
Willie?
Yes.
Yes, hi. My name is Marguerite, and I'm just not shy, but I was not putting
No worries.
myself in because
I just try to
bigger,
make the best of the situation,
yeah,
a little bit of
bigger,
humor.
yeah, bigger people, bigger schools are there. Pretty new in the industry. Okay, I am approved but not accredited, so I don't have anything to do with NACCAS. But my
Okay.
question is, so should we put the application in for with BBC or wait for? So what we're deciding to do? I really don't know exactly how
Okay, yeah,
to.
so what you want to do is you want to go to the California Board of Barbering and Cosmetology
Yes,
website.
and they have the application. I see
Yes,
the
they have the
application.
application there. You want to fill it out, send in your curriculum, whether it's going to be 1,000, 1,200, 1,300,
I know
whatever.
that's what the 1,000, but I don't know. So which one to go with? Well,
Okay.
I'm with everyone. 1,000 hours are not enough, obviously, but then I just have cosmetology. I don't have barbering. So
So, that's something that, unfortunately, my school here, and I made this public to my students and everybody here. We're gonna drop down to the 1,500. You as a state approved school can stay the same at 1,600 hours and you don't have to do anything. You can stay at 1,600 hours. You don't have to submit anything to the board or to maybe not even to the Bureau. Because that's what they stipulated on their FAQ section, that if you're keeping your hours the same, you don't have to do anything but just change your curriculum.
well, and also another thing, I don't want to keep it then because in the future, not January, but February, March, every school will grade down. I mean, go down with their hours, and the students will just run for the less hours as they like to have
And that might be
less
true.
hours.
Yes, that might be true.
It's not only
Um,
because of money, but also because of the hours. They run after less hours. They're thinking it's better to get less than more
right.
without even
And
understanding.
the thing that might happen, and I may see myself in the same situation as other schools having to reconsider, in the future, dropping to 1,000 hours. But the problem is that right now, my current students with their financial aid and their financial aid package, they end up with a $2,000-3,000 loan, which, I'm okay with that. And I think most of them are okay with that as well. If we drop down to 1,000, they're going to end up with a $7,000 to $8,000 loan. Now, other schools have other, tuition rates, and they may end up, because, obviously, if we drop down to 1,000, we have to unfortunately keep the same tuition rate.
Yes.
And even though the course is 1,000 hours, we just don't see the numbers working out for us.
Of course,
if we drop down to 1,000, and other schools drop down to 1,000, and they keep their tuition, the same as of their current 1,500 and 1,600 hours, then the students will unfortunately, be having to look for other types of funding, student loans.
I
that's the thing
understand.
that has to be considered. But unfortunately, every school will one day have to figure that out for themselves and be like, okay, my neighbor 20 miles away or 5 miles away has a 1,000-hour course. That's unfortunately my competition. Here where I'm at in El Monte, I have 4 schools around me with a radius of 5 miles. So that is something that, yes, it's in the back of our minds. We're trying to stick strong with our 1,500-hour course because that's our limit. But it's something that is in the back of our minds. And then considering, what was said before by Bonnie and other people, it's impossible to finish the course in 1,000 hours, especially.
It is not. It is not.
For barbering, I don't have the barbering, so I can't really talk about that. But in regards to cosmetology, I don't see it happening.
And
Either
also,
we're going to be rushing the students, to do 2 chapters a week or a chapter and a half
Yeah.
a week, you know, and we know how our students are.
And they're not willing to change the book yet. I spoke to Milady, they're saying we're not ready, we're not changing anything
Oh, no,
yet.
no,
So
they're not.
I'm
They're
sure,
actually coming out with a new version next year, sometime in July.
yeah,
It's
but
the same amount of chapters,
same
same
thing,
amount
yeah, yeah.
of information. It may be just new pictures here and there, a couple words changed, but
As usual, yeah, but
yeah.
nothing less than whatever it is now.
Where's your school at, if I may ask?
I'm in North Hollywood.
Oh, North Hollywood. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in LA. So then
What's the name of your school?
Marmel Beauty Academy.
Okay, okay. Well,
Yeah,
glad to see you here, you know.
yeah.
You know, I
Same
know
here.
it's some very tough decisions, you know, to make.
It is tough decisions,
You know,
and honestly,
I don't know. I
I
think
really don't
I've
want to
lost
stay
more.
behind.
I lost a lot of hair this last couple of months, and my hair has turned white. You know, I color it every 2 months now. You know, but yeah, it's been very tough
Yeah.
to you know, navigate these, you know, waters
Yeah, I
that are,
know.
you know, not
It
steady for
is.
us. You know, we came out of a pandemic, and now we went into another, you know.
Exactly. We didn't even come out yet fully, and now this happened. Now we don't know what to do, and then
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard for
But
us
you
and
know,
for school for
you know,
students.
the best thing that I would suggest that you do for yourself right now, since you're a state approved school, just keep your course the same right now, and then after the New Year's, you know, then kind of just see where everybody's at. Have you talked to your students right now, or have you polled them? Like, have you
That's
asked them what is
well,
it that they
I
want?
did talk. I only have a bunch of students, like 7, 8 of them. My Cosmo class is small,
Okay.
but then I talked to them, and some of them they are waiting for to have less hours. Some of them they don't really care, and you know, some students they're pro from other countries and just want to get their licenses, and
Right.
that's another story.
Yes.
And
Yeah. I have the same
and so
situation
many
here.
calls. Yeah, I know so many calls I'm getting, and they're asking, okay, we'll be back in January to make sure that you have less hours, because we would like to have less hours. And unfortunately, honestly, I don't really know, but somehow I know why. Everybody thinks that school is only to get hours and then go get trained with pros, which is not true, which is not right. And I'm trying to explain
Correct.
to them, and I'm trying to teach them. And my teachers are great teachers. We're putting so many new stuff and demos and extra classes, blah blah blah, whatever. But still, everybody's impression is the schools are only to get the hours. So that's what
And that's very
bothers.
unfortunate. You know, that's very unfortunate
Yes,
that
yes, it is.
these politicians have made it about just hours. You know,
Yes.
when in you know, this is something that I've said to many other people, and I said I would have respected more SB803 if they would have, from all the schools here in California, there's about 300 schools, okay? If they would have got half of the teachers and put them all together in the Congress via Zoom or whatever, and said, hey, we need you guys to come up with, you know, something in regards to lowering the hours, the curriculum or whatever. And if, you know, 200-300 teachers from all of California would have came up with and said, yes, 1,000 hours is fine, I would have been respectful of that decision.
Yes, more,
Not
yeah.
you know, Senator Roth, an analyst like myself, you know, I'm an administrator. I don't know anything about cosmetology. That's my mom's division. This is her school.
Yeah.
You know, I analyze numbers. I analyze, you know, what comes in, what goes out. You know, that's my position here. That's the position that unfortunately Senator Roth, Sarah Mason, and all their people have. They're analysts. They're number crunchers. You know,
yes, I know.
they really, now if they would have had 5 cosmetologists, 5 barbers, you know, in that
Of course,
made
to
up their
analyze,
analysis.
to make sure,
Oh,
to go over, to think
you know,
and
that would have been more respectful.
understand. Of course, to understand what we're teaching. If something is teaching extra, then Milady has to be involved too. Then they can delete some chapters if not needed, or shorten them, or I don't know, somehow to help us if they're putting down the numbers, and
You know, another
chapter
thing
has to go
that,
down.
yes, another thing that has been said is the states that have unfortunately gone down to 1,000 hours, their lawsuits have increased.
Yeah,
You know, so
I
being
know.
here that we're in California, we're not going to see it right away. Maybe in about a year or 2 years, we're going to start seeing these lawsuits, you know, increase.
I'm sure. Thanks God they didn't take the exams totally out, but still, everybody's like happy with not having a practical, but
The
it's not right.
best thing to do is, you know, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be developing our own practical exam.
That's what I was having a meeting
You
with
know,
my teachers and my staff today.
my mom is she's a cosmetologist since 1970, 1975 or somewhere around there.
Yeah,
I'm not too sure on the
yeah.
date. And you know, that's what they would do before. They would do the entire procedure there at the school and at state board and with a live model. You know,
Yeah.
this new practical exam, I understand they made changes just to make it easier. And now, you know, they completely deleted it. So it's going to be a challenge, you know, for our
It
schools
is.
and our students. But,
It
you
is.
know, I know that everybody that's here, you know, is here for a reason. You know, I believe that the majority of people that were on the Zoom and have been on the Zoom calls are very hardworking, honest administrators, owners, supervisors that only want the best for their students.
Of
You know,
course,
Can
of course.
I ask a question?
That-
Can I ask a question, Willie? Are you there?
yes, go ahead, Chris.
I didn't mean to, you know, this is a good conversation. I didn't want to be interrupted, but I'm going to have to leave pretty soon. Do you have any idea what's going on with the AACS? You know, we had this conference is starting tomorrow. And as you know, I submitted a couple of times requests to have a panel on SB803 and was met with a complete silence from them. And, you know, it'd be very
AACS, about 4 months ago, I was invited to a Zoom call with Jazz and Mark and Fred was there, and a couple other schools were there. And they basically deferred everything to Fred Jones and the PBFC.
But they're supposed to be our advocacy organization.
Yeah, but they just gave it up and said,
Yeah,
nope.
but we didn't ask them to take a position. I just asked them to convene a panel because it would be very useful to be able to hear from New York and some of the other states that have gone through this as to what their experience post legislation has been.
Oh, you know, this unfortunately, I think it's just going to be just the beginning. You know, the rest of the nation is going to follow suit. There was a couple of people on other Zoom calls that were from, I'm not too sure if they're from a neighboring state, and they fought this with their state, you know, legislators, and they actually won. But now that California passed it, now they're going back into the fight again. So it's something that unfortunately the rest of the nation is going to follow suit, and we'll see it in the next year or two, where probably more than a third of the states are going to follow suit.
Is it possible that AACS is compromised because they're taking money from supercuts and the larger?
Oh, of course.
Okay, that explains it.
If they were paying me a couple $1 million, I would be here. Go down to 1,000 hours. You know, get that 600-hour course in there. You know, it just is what it is. You know, and forget the students. You know, I got my pockets full. So it's just a sad situation, you know, that we're undergoing, and we just have to move forward from here, and hopefully, Seth and the PBFC and maybe AACS as well, but I doubt it. But I think it's going to be more on Fred and the PBFC to move us into the next area as far as what we do, because there was nobody else out there, Chris. There was nobody else out there, when we were out there, in the rally. There was no other trade organization, that had even had one slight mention to oppose SB803 besides Fred.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad situation because I get regular weekly emails from AACS, minute detail, talking about what's happening with the Department of Education and talking about other kinds of minutia. And they're not addressing the elephant in the room, which is the wholesale assault on the schools as a class.
Yeah. I deleted their emails because I'm like, when they invited me to that meeting, 3-4 months ago, or 4 or 5 months ago, I'm sorry. I'm like, oh wow, okay. They're gonna come out and bring their full on team of lawyers, and no, we're deferring to Fred. Okay, Fred, take over. That's how that meeting went.
Well, that's pretty disgraceful.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, thanks for everything you're doing.
All right,
really.
Chris, you take care.
All right, talk to you later.
Hey, Willie, I'll let you go too. Hopefully.
Okay, no problem.
We'll be in touch soon. Yeah, I'm closely watching and following the other group that I appreciate everyone's putting their thoughts, the news that they have and everything. So hopefully we'll have another meeting.
If you're
soon.
on the Remind School app,
yeah,
I know sometimes it gets a little bit crazy in there, but it's a good crazy.
It's okay. Yeah, it's a good crazy. At least we know what's going on. And
yes, Mr. Joseph, go ahead.
So I'm gonna let you go.
Okay, you take care. Okay.
Bye bye. You too.
Okay.
Bye
bye. Bye bye.
Can you hear me, Willie?
Yes, loud and clear.
How you doing?
Good, good.
I have a couple questions. And since you mentioned, I've been listening to this whole thing, and my wife and I have pretty much participated in all of this, and we're down to the nitty gritty now.
Yes.
But when you said the number cruncher, you got my attention. Am I wrong in thinking if I cut my business 30-40%, that I might be on a downhill slope to bankruptcy?
Yes, unfortunately.
I mean, I can't remember the man's name. He has this 6 or 7.
Paul Mentia.
Yeah.
From
Northern
Paul Mitchell.
From
Paul Mentia had that he opened he opened my eyes to that, and I started doing my numbers. And if we do, let's say we were to drop our hours here at our school to 1,000 hours,
correct,
and keep our current hourly charge. So right now we charge $9, but let's just say $10 just to round off. So we would charge $10,000. Students would finish in 6 months to a year, depending their schedule. They would have probably after financial aid and maybe $2,000 balance with the school. With our current expenses, our current payroll, in about a year or two, our school would cease to exist. We would be in the red.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is just take, maybe not 2020 or 2021, get your 2019 balance and profit sheet, from whatever accounting software you have, and just look at those numbers. And then drop 30% from your total income, and then you'll see if you make it.
Michelle and I are, we're owner operators. We're in the school between the two of us, and our son, we're in the school every day. we're a small school. We only have the one license.
Where's your school at, if you don't mind me asking?
Associated
What was
Bar, San Diego.
Oh, Associated. Okay, I've seen you on the remind.
Yeah. You usually deal with Michelle because I always send the background because she's better looking than I am.
I have you on remind as Joe Associated Barber, because that's how Jazz gave me all the numbers, and if she had typos or whatever, that's how it went on the remind. So,
but when we sit down and did the numbers, I mean, we run 55, 60 students, a year. And good for us. We're a mom and pop. We both work there.
Yeah.
Our son works there. We have but when I did the numbers and I kind of do the number crunching like you do, and I just told her, I says, this is not a viable program. I mean, if we cut our tuition by 30% or 34%, I think is what it came out to be, then the last quarter of our payment from financial aid, we don't get.
Exactly.
I mean, right now, she said we're going to owe the federal government because we do a lot of VAs. She's very involved with the VA. And they pay up front.
Yes.
We need to send them $100,000. And they say, "Oh, that's
well." The one good thing that the state board, mentioned in their Monday meeting about 2 weeks ago is that your current students, you can allow them or you can have them finish out their current contract because you have a contract with them, so you can allow them to finish out their contract. Okay,
if they do that, that'll be great.
Yeah.
But
now, if they, for whatever reason,
San Diego's to the line, and what I'm afraid of is everybody's going to go crazy down here. When I bought my school, Michelle and I bought our school in 2002. There was 2 barber schools in San Diego. Now there's like 15 or 20. I mean, right across the street from me, Paul Mitchell. Paul Mitchell was there for years, and then they added a barber program. I mean, who's to say these people are going to not, where are we going to be? I mean, I'm going to keep my course at 1,500 hours. I don't know how the rest do. And then, she's going to apply for another course at 1,200. We think, we're not even sure about that. I have a small school, but they're going to go nuts. I mean, some of these small schools, that I hear these guys on these schools, I mean, they might not be in the same financial shape that that I'm in. And they're going to destroy this business.
Yes.
I mean, what you said, there's 4 or 5 schools within a couple miles of you?
Yeah, so I'm here in the city of El Monte. I'm about maybe 20 minutes from Los Angeles. But in my area here, within 4 to 5 miles, I have a high school, adult high school that has a cosmetology program.
Yeah.
We have Rosemead Beauty School, Vietnamese Beauty School, just within a couple minutes of this school. The only thing that, unfortunately or fortunate for us, we're kind of unique. We're highly specialized in Spanish only, and so our competition is very, very small. We do offer English, but later on, who's to say that the students are not going to be willing to travel 20 miles down into Los Angeles, where they do have another Spanish school over there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something to think about, what we're going to be doing right now as of January 1st, as opposed to what we're going to be doing January 1st, 2023.
Exactly.
We might have to drop down to 1,000 to compete. But the problem is, and this is where, I come from, is I'm looking at the numbers of my students. If right now we charge $15,000 for our tuition, that's books, equipment, and everything included, $15,000. So they get about $11,000 in financial aid. We give them a small discount, just promotional discount that we give everybody, about $1,000. So at the end of the day, they have about a $2,000-3,000 balance.
Yeah.
So we drop down to 1,000, continue with our $15,000 tuition rate. Now they went from $2,000 balance to $8,000.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we actually had a meeting with our staff last week because obviously it's in the back of everybody's minds. Students think that, the law, passed as it was back in July, where anybody could cut hair without a license. So we clarified all that to our teachers so that they could clarify it to our students. And then finally, our financial aid officer went and spoke numbers to them. And when they actually heard the numbers, they're like, oh no, we'll keep the 1,600 hours that we're in, or 1,500 hours that it's going to be after January 1st. Because at the end of the day, it's basically, we have to look at those numbers.
The way I see the numbers, I mean, for the barber schools, it's 34%. For the beauty schools, it's almost 40%.
Yeah.
It's suicide. And if we drop our hours, I mean, for Michelle and I, we've pretty much decided that everybody that signed a 1,500-hour contract, we're going to run it out. And what everybody's talking about sounds good, but we only have a 1,500-hour contract. We only have a 1,500-hour course right now that we can sell, and NACCAS has approved that course.
Yes.
So if I drop it to 1,250, NACCAS doesn't approve that course.
Right.
So I'm going to leave my course at 1,500 so you can get financial aid.
Right, exactly.
And that's the course I have right now until I get the other.
So you're kind of in a unique situation with the board. You really don't have to submit anything to them, and just with NACCAS, because you're keeping your hours at 1,500. So yeah, so you're pretty much good to go. It's only us that are dropping to 100, which I already asked NACCAS about. I said, we're just dropping 100. Why do we even have to submit paperwork? You guys, we're already authorized. We're already approved. You know what we're all about.
And you know why?
You know 6-year approval.
Dropping 100 hours. It's the state mandate. So when they say, I mean, if the state overrules NACCAS, then you have to go with the state.
Yeah.
It's a shame there, but I don't think we're going to drop anything yet. I mean, we might apply for the different hours, but I'm not gonna jeopardize what we've built because somebody's got a bug up. But
let me go turn on my lights. They're on the.
Okay.
I got my lights on the 15-minute sensor because sometimes when I'm here in the office, I'm sitting for 2-3 hours. So
no, I appreciate you taking the time. I got a lot out of tonight's meeting.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I am part of the PBFC, and that is, if you're not a member there,
no, we are.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, then
we're members.
We had that meeting last Monday, and I don't know if you were there. I think I saw you there.
Yeah, I was there.
But a lot of good information that we can, by coming together, we can share. And I'm basically here to try and share and have this open space, to try and help out whoever, whether they're part of the PBFC or not. Whatever information I have, I want to share with everybody. I wish, like other people have said, that we can keep our courses at 1,500 or 1,600, not drop down to 1,000. But everybody has to make their own decision.
Well, when the water level starts dropping and people start getting hurt financially, I mean, I've been doing this for 60 years. And when that thing starts getting tight, then they start.
And see that, and that's very true. You've been in this business for a long time. I've been here since 2020, going on 21 years. And I know what my school runs at. I know that my school runs about 80 students on average, and I don't care if I'm going to drop down to 1,000 hours. It's going to continue running at about 80 students. So if I'm running at 80 students and I'm dropping to 1,000 hours, and my tuition is staying, the tuition rate, hourly rate is staying the same as I have it right now, where am I gonna get that 40 extra students that I need?
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the same thing with us. It's like they say, well, there's going to be more students want to go to school.
No,
They're going to put
the
I
same
mean-
amount of students that are gonna be here at 1,000 are gonna be here at 1,500 and 1,600.
exactly. And if
Yeah.
and if all of a sudden you get 20 or 30 more students, now you need more instructors, more costs. It isn't get cheaper because you have more.
Yeah.
There's no way around this. If they 40, 30, 40%, they cut you 30, 40%.
And you know, one of the things is it's just good to, you know, talk about this with other school owners and other administrators so that we can kind of share these ideas and see where everybody's at. You know, unfortunately, you know, some schools are fortunate for them, you know, this is good for them, dropping to 1,000. And I wish them all the best. And I hope they wish me all the best as well. You know, I know what's best for my school, my students, and my staff, you know, and I would hate to drop down to 1,000 and then have to do, you know what, we're going to have to let go of 2 or 3 teachers because that's what it is. You know, the numbers just don't add up, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, you have to do what's best for yourself. You have to look at your, you know, accounting and see if the numbers, you know, will be there for you. And you know, when Paul Mantia from Paul Mitchell, you know, spoke at Fred Jones's PBFC meeting, he opened up my eyes and I was like, okay, hold on. He's making some sense here.
Mine too.
And, you know, I ran my numbers the way that I know to run my numbers. And I'm like, oh, damn, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, when he said that, I thought this guy's got serious, you know, he's got a serious business.
Yeah.
And he says he's going to be bankrupt in 2 years, you know, and then we ran our numbers. And I mean, of course, it's a much smaller operation. And she said, if we leave it if we do exactly what the state says, we took a 34% cut in pay. Now, my bottom line is 34%. I mean, you know.
Yeah. No, we're in the same, you know.
Happy camper. I mean, come on, this is real world. And that's what scares me. But you know, the sad thing is that, like I say, I've been doing this way too long. If you go back into the 70s, we had a school owners association. Red Carter, Jim Sanfield, some of those people way back, probably before you were involved in this. But now in San Diego, with all of this stuff, and I've been on just about every Zoom, you've seen either Michelle or I, not one school, we've not one of us have talked to one another. Nobody talks to nobody.
No.
And nobody's picked up the phone and said, hey, let's half a dozen of us get together. I mean, Paul Mitchell's right across the street. Bellis is down the street. I mean, we're all, you know, like you, close. And
you
nobody.
Know, I've been kind of like the center of communication, and I'm the one that has received phone calls, and you know, I run that Remind School app that, you know, we put as many people as wanted to be there. And sometimes, you know, they'll press the phone if they actually have the app on their phone, or they're just receiving the text message. Even they can press the call button, and I'm the one that picks up.
Yeah.
So I have had the pleasure of meeting and talking to several people, you know, on the app, and you know, we've shared, you know, stories, and you know, kind of shared our same sentiments, you know, as far as, you know, what we feel. You know, the thing from here forward is, you know, we just got to wait and see what's going to come of this, you know, all this craziness, you know, and hopefully, you know, we can make the best for our students, because at the end of the day, you know, our students are the ones that are going to end up either benefiting from us keeping our current courses or not.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. But if these schools can't financially survive, then everybody loses.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm running out of battery, Willie.
All right, Joseph.
Time.
You take care. I think that's going to be pretty much it for me, and we'll probably have another meeting after Thanksgiving.
I'll be there.
All right, sounds good. You guys take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Adelina, Frank, Sophia, Jockman, you guys there? No?
Thanks, Willie. This is Eric. I just got
Oh,
the
Eric.
No, I was
How
just
you
a
doing?
fly on the wall. Good. Yeah, no, I maybe caught the last hour or so. Yeah, I'm driving. So
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
How was it? It's not the end. I mean, it was good just to hear. You know, I want to hear other people's perspectives and stuff. But I missed the beginning part. How did it go?
There was some good information, you know, some information that we're still going to have to verify from Ms. Rosalinda Lamb. She was stating that, you know, she's the one that works.
I did catch that,
Okay.
and I totally agree with you. I mean, that's certainly not been my understanding of it.
Yeah,
so
no.
I think it would be good to know if that's. I mean, I'd love it to be true, but like you said, we need some hard evidence.
Yeah, I think what Seth said is true, and what we heard in our PBFC meeting. You know, I think the PBFC and the relationship that, you know, they're forming with the BBC and the BPPE, I think it's going to help a lot, you know, to expedite, you know, our applications. Now with NACCAS, that's a different story. But I did you know, send an email to Christy Underwood, Fred and Seth, and Mary Nell Myers from NACCAS, just to clarify and make sure that, you know, what Linda Lamb was stating, because we don't want to get in trouble. You know, here comes the new year, you know, and maybe right after vacation, you know, January 5th or whatever the case might be, and we're enrolling students because we haven't got approval. Oh yeah, keep going at 1,600 hours because, you know, there's no approval, and you know, somebody on Zoom said it. So that's why I kept asking her. I said, where can we find this? You know, where can we, you know, where has this been stated? Because, you know, if you don't have it in writing somewhere, you'll get in trouble, and we don't need that right now. So,
because I wonder if, I mean, I understand if NACCAS, they might not have an issue with that, but that doesn't mean it's okay with the Department of Ed and board. So yeah, no, I'm with you. Now, what is your understanding of, do we need to wait, or are you planning on submitting to NACCAS as well, or waiting until you have approval?
So
first?
I think we have to submit to the board. We have to get approval from the board. Then once we get approval from the board, then we have to submit to NACCAS. I'm not too sure if they're allowing us to submit beforehand. I strongly doubt it because they're pretty much by the book. But I believe we have to submit to the board first. January 1st comes around, hopefully they'll have approval, or maybe they might have pre-approval. Because it's basically, you're submitting a one-page form to an email address, and I think that's all they want. They just want to, okay, you submitted it, what's your hours? They're gonna type it in, okay, here's your approval on January 1st. And then hopefully from there, we can submit to NACCAS, and NACCAS will do the same clerical input into their computers. And then after that, then we can submit to DOE and change our e-car with them.
I wonder if, and I don't know if Fred is the right person, but like through the PBFC or maybe one of us can talk to NACCAS to see if there's a way we can expedite it or pre-send in our information. Like you said, I know they
the last
have
time
their
I
certain
had spoken
procedures,
to, the last time I had spoken to Mary Nell Myers, who's the only one that returned my call, the only one that answers your calls are over there. She said that we had to wait till we got approval.
Got it.
But
in other words, I mean, we just want to make it easy for them too. Like it would be nice. I mean, like, hey, there's gonna be a ton of things coming their way. Can we?
Get
this? Is there any way we could get it? Yeah.
Well, or submit it at the same time, so you have all the documentation, and then all you're waiting is for just that one approval from the board.
Exactly.
And then, we PDF it to them or upload it via their website, however way they're gonna want it. I'm not too sure how they're gonna do it, but if you saw Christy Underwood last week, she looked super stressed.
Yeah.
And
But
so,
at least that makes sense that we can send it in now, and then, you know, like I agree that my expectation based on what you and Seth said from the meeting that, yeah, like basically January 1st or shortly thereafter will be.
yeah, you know what?
approved, so.
Remind me tomorrow, once I get a response back to the first question, because I don't want to like overburden her with like 10
Yeah,
emails. You know, I'll do one at a time with Mary Nell Myers. And then, you know, I'll ask her this particular question to see if we actually have to wait for State Board to approve us and then submit to them, or submit it pending State Board approval. They'll approve us at that time. But that's a good question. That's a good question to ask her. So
I'll remind you, and we'll go through you just so we're not all sending our separate
yeah.
things.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that'll be good. I'll go ahead and submit that to her. And she did call me on the adjacent state issue, Mary Nell. Yeah. And she said, well, we have it there in the FAQ, you know, and it's there, you know, question number 10, you know, but, you know, they made it a little bit more difficult, you know, than what Department of Education wants for the adjacent states. But Department of Education said, yes, they can make it a little bit more difficult. You know.
Got it. Okay.
So,
yeah, I saw your emails. Yeah, I mean, I got the impression. Yeah, I mean,
because
it seems like it may not be worth
that,
the effort for those 100 hours.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking that, you know, based on the way that they wrote FAQ number 10, that they were considering the mileage, which the way they wrote it, you know, they are considering how far away you are from the state. But the way that Department of Education wrote it, they said there's no restriction on mileage. But the way that NACCAS wrote it, even though they have it open, but they're saying, what does the local community around your school support, you know, moving? Yeah, so, you know, for us here at PIB, we do have students that come from Nevada and Arizona and have come over here to live here for a year and a half, and then they go back. You know, and we do have proof of that. But for other schools, that might not be the issue. But we're not even going to attack that area. We're just going to drop down to 1,500 and, you know, let it be.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, Willie. Well, thanks so much.
Sounds good. Then we'll probably
talk
talk to everybody after Thanksgiving, and we'll see where everybody's at, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Have a good evening.
All right, you too. All right, bye-bye. Bye-bye, Miss Adelina Frank.